Beavis. Get your coins, get your nickels and dimes and quarters, because it's time to get back on the Deltarune ride. Yes, sir. Deltarune. Well, it's back after a while. It came back into my life, and it came back with a bang. If you haven't heard, by some miracle, at the start of last month, a little game known as Deltarune came out. Not the game itself, 2 new chapters to the entire game, and I was freaking stoked. It was time. We're back in action, baby. Let's go. And I went in blind. I played the chapters. I went in completely blind, and well, yeah, like there's no words, dude. Like it's the new chapters were crazy. You get it? These new chapters were phenomenal. I freaking loved them. But we gotta talk about the main focus of this video, the horror of the new chapters. Is there any? Am I gonna make am I gonna freak out at the most non-scariest stuff about these new chapters again? Absolutely. 100% I am, because well, one, I actually did find a lot of stuff in these new chapters sort of scary, but then again, I'm kind of like a little scaredy little freak. I'm scared of everything, so of course I would find stuff scary in these new chapters. But there is legitimately so much to talk about when it comes to horror in these new chapters. Horror is in quotations because again, Deltarune isn't really scary. It's just like a game with some moments that could be seen as somewhat creepy, but I would define that as horror just to be more broad, and also it looks good in titles saying the horror of Deltarune chapters 3 and 4. So that's why whenever I'm referring to the horror of these new chapters, it's not me literally saying, oh, Sans gets boogie, he breaks it down with Toriel. That's terrifying. No, it isn't, but I mean it's freaky. But yeah, if I refer to something as horror in this video, it's probably not like the genuine definition of horror, but I did find some level of fear or eeriness to anything I discuss in this video. So yeah, all that's out the way. Introduction is done. Let's talk about the horror of Deltarune chapters 3 and 4. And of course, we gotta start with chapter 3. Now, we're gonna get into it, I promise you, but there's always that one person that may not know what Deltarune is. I gotta say a few things. One, if you are interested in Deltarune but you haven't played it yet, there is gonna be a lot of spoilers in this video, so I recommend you go buy the game, play it, consume it, and then come back, and then you can watch this video and have a fun time. If you don't care about spoilers, that's fine, stick around. I'll try my very best to give a summary of what happens up until chapter 3, so you can be caught up on some of what I'm gonna be talking about in this video, okay? So, to catch you up, Deltarune follows 3 main characters, Chris, Susie, and Rouse. These 3 have crazy hijinks exploring areas called dark worlds. These dark worlds are created by a certain individual that we'll see a little bit more later on in this video, but the goal of these 3 main characters is to go to these dark worlds and seal them. Also, in dark worlds, these areas give birth to things called darkeners. People like Susie and Chris are called lighteners, and the reason why darkeners and lighteners are different is because lighteners can exist between the light world, which is just reality, and the dark world, and I also believe only lighteners can make dark worlds, and darkeners can solely exist in dark worlds. And also to catch you up on the story and the personality of these 3 main characters, Chris is the protagonist of Deltarune. They're the person we play as, and it's through their eyes that we see a lot of the events in this game go down, but also us playing as Chris in this game is relevant to the actual story of Deltarune, or to the story of Chris, because Chris is aware of us. Us, the player, exist in the game of Deltarune through Chris's soul, and their story sort of circles around that a lot, around being a prisoner to us. That's sort of what Chris's story is about. We're gonna dive more into that later on in this video. Susie's story is about her opening up and showing who she really is as a person. Deltarune first shows her as this rough, tough, mean person, really standoffish, but as the game progresses and we learn more about Susie and see more of her, we can tell that she is just like a dope person. She's really cool, and despite her personality and appearance, she is probably one of the more morally just people in this game. So that's what Susie's entire story is about. And then finally we have Rouse, and my poor baby Rouse. First off, he's a sweet guy. Rouse is so nice, but this dude is always going through something in this game, and I can't really exactly explain to you what his story is. He really just like exists, kind of. However, all you need to know for Rouse is that Rouse knows a lot, and what I mean by that is that Rouse just has like an endless well of knowledge that he did not ask to know, but he just does. I think that's all you really need to know for Rousey. I won't say too much here because we're going to dive in more of that part of Rousey's character later on in this video. So I think that's about it. We can finally move on. To finally really get into Chapter 3's horror, you need to know that we leave off Chapter 2 with Chris making their own dark fountain in their own house. Therefore, they create a dark world. Chris and Susie both wake up in this dark world because before Chris made the fountain, it was established Susie was sleeping on their couch and having a sleepover. So Susie's here too. She wakes up Chris too, and they go out, they find Rousey, and Susie begins to talk to Rousey about coming to the light world with him, which the light world is just the real world, the world where there isn't no darkners, which I also forgot to explain what that is. Darkners are what Rousey is. Susie and Chris aren't darkners, they're lightners. And Susie basically is talking to Rousey about how she wishes he would come to the light world with her and Chris to hang out, to live life together, because Susie sees Rousey as a good friend of hers, and Rousey has to break the news to her that he can't really do that because he's a darkner. This information really hurts Susie, but he further explains why he can't come with her, and when he describes this, we see a cutscene in Deltarune Chapter 3. I don't know why I said it like that. We see a cutscene in the game that shows a dirty, broken down room, and during this cutscene, we hear music that sounds very unnerving. When I heard this during the game, it caught me off guard because we've actually heard this music before in Deltarune. It's at the end of, we'll just say, the bad route for Chapter 2, and at the end of it, there's this song that plays during an unnerving moment in that route that plays the same song we're hearing during this cutscene. The song, I believe, is just titled Flashback. Here's the song from Chapter 2. And here's the song from Chapter 3. It's always sounded like a lullaby to me, like a messed up lullaby, right? And it's a very interesting song choice to play during this cutscene too, because, well, you know, it helps set this cutscene up as something sort of serious. It helps you understand that what Rousey is talking about is just an unfortunate situation, knowing that he can't ever hang out with his friends, and he's always just sort of doomed to live a fake life with him in the dark world while they have to live their actual life in the light world. So there's just never going to be that true connection. So that's what this music helps you feel the sadness. It helps you feel Rousey's and Susie's sort of frustration about the entire situation they're in. And I mean, this moment isn't really scary, but the song is. So that's cool. Moving on. Susie interrupts Rousey's speech by grabbing him by the shoulders and telling him what he's saying is crazy. All the stuff about him saying how he's not real and how he's fake doesn't make sense to her because she can touch him, she can feel him. She can hear him. All this stuff contradicts what he says. But after Susie interrupts Rousey, Susie gets interrupted suddenly by a character named Tenna, who has this guy is a lot to handle. I don't think he's too important to this video. He'll come up again later, but his intro, he has a little intro that plays whenever he comes to say hi to Susie, or whenever he introduces himself. The intro, right? And during this intro, it is like madness. Just so much is going on, and there's nothing scary in it. There's only one thing I want to talk about. It's this Rousey model, 3D model, with his like mouth agape. Now I'm just bringing him up because he just looks like the most stereotypical analog horror thing in the world, with the freaky mouth, small beady eyes. That is analog horror right there, baby. But after this Tenna intro, Tenna sort of forces the Fun Gang to play games with him, and he makes the Fun Gang play a game called TV Time: The Legend of Tenna. But whenever Tenna gets the Fun Gang to sit down to play this game, before we see the main title, we see a small little intro, which is like, it goes like, and we see like a shadow to the title to this game that we're going to be playing. But the shadow letters that we see do not match up with the name on the main game's title screen. Do not match up with the game's main screen title. How do I word this? How do I do this? Basically, the shadow letters, it doesn't match this. The shadow letters, from what I can tell and from what I've seen online, they spell out mantle, which that doesn't make sense right now, but it's all gonna make sense soon. Moving on to the actual game that Tenna makes us play. It's overall a pretty fun experience. We're exploring, doing some small missions. We see some fun interactions between Susie and Rousey, Susie and Tenna. But during us playing this game within a game, there's this song playing in the back called Adventure Board, which you should be hearing it in the video right now. And the song itself is relatively innocent, and I don't think there's actually anything bad about it. about it, but I wanted to bring up that whenever I first heard this song, there's the beginning of it. It begins with like several fast-paced beeps, so it's like beep 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 beep. And that to me, whenever I first played this chapter, sounded like Morse code. Now, I don't know if it's Morse code. I'm not gonna go out of my way to see if it is Morse code because I don't know how to freaking decipher that. But if it is, that's cool. Someone decipher it and tell me what it says in the comments. But just the fact that it sounded like Morse code reminded me of this series that I always bring up on this channel for some reason, even though I haven't talked about it in an actual video exclusively. The Walten Files. It's an analog horror series, not important to the video. All you need to know is that there's this one episode. One of the characters in this video get to a point to where they play a game, and in this game there's a small little song, a small little jammy that we hear, and it's beeps that sound similar to this Deltarune song.
Yeah, this is the game I wanted to show you something.
But the beeps in this Walten Files song that sound like Morse code, well, it is Morse code, and it spells out SOS. So this song in Deltarune just reminded me of that. I just wanted to bring that up real quick. And I also kind of want to dive into something I learned about Deltarune's music in this third chapter. So throughout these mini games BadhamKnibbs play, apparently, I don't know if I have the exact details down. Apparently, Toby made the music for these mini games similar to how older like Game Boy games and stuff even before the Game Boy, I think, the music that those consoles had and had very limited instruments to play music with, because like all that, the technology, you know, couldn't really support super complex songs, and so there's only so much you could do when it comes to making a song with older consoles. And Toby Fox made his songs for these mini games in a similar way to how the older consoles had to make their songs. I think that just made the music sound a lot more jarring a little bit, but like in a good way. Like obviously the music sounds fire, like it's not like bad sounding at all, but for me personally, it kind of just built this tension within me playing this third chapter. And I'm not sure if that's intentional by Toby, but it's just interesting that that is what happened. That's about all we could do with this first Tenna mini game. After we beat it, Tenna sends us off into a place called the Green Room while he sets up another mini game for us to play. And in this Green Room, you can explore, talk to people, and you can talk to this one guy up here, and his name is Ram. And Ram is a very fascinating person. When you first talk to him, here is what he says.
Oi, Kreeslav, it's me, Ram. You and your brother took me here from the library. How are they all? Queen still bossy? Swatch still got a mohawk? And that salesman. Right, the store. If you want anything, just use your points. Time flies. Seems like just yesterday you and that girl had everyone in here lined up. Queen on her side, king on your side, Tenna in the back. Oh, it was chaos. Only kids like you two would take a laptop home just to play make-believe. How is she, Chris? Are you two? Well, it's alright. Everyone changes except us.
Now, if you're new to anything involving Deltarune, what Ram says here doesn't really make too much sense, and you may not really get why the heck I'm bringing it up. Well, one, what he says here is just odd. What the heck is he talking about? Despite him seeming physically kind of innocent, he's kind of mysterious. He has this weird vibe about him, and so that's sort of freaky. But the main reason why I brought him up is because he mentions two very interesting characters. He says the phrase chaos, which that's a reference to someone we meet in chapter 1. His name is Jeff, and he is that chapter's secret boss. I don't know if I've established this yet, but in every single chapter so far, there is at least one secret boss. Chapter 1 secret boss is this character named Jevel, and he's well known for saying the phrase chaos. And also, Ram does directly mention another secret boss, this being Spamton, which I don't know if I've introduced him yet either. I have bad memory, so I might have brought him up earlier, but I already forgot. He is chapter 2 secret boss, and seeing Ram just mention him on a whim like this blew my freaking mind when playing this chapter, because I love Spamton. He's one of my favorite characters in this game, and he's also probably one of the most unnerving characters to come from both Undertale and Deltarune. So once again, Ram referencing him sort of builds up an anticipation for something spooky to happen with Ram in the future. By the way, he references Spamton by saying, and that salesman, implying that he's aware of Spamton and sort of his situation sort of. Ram is gonna return later on in this video, but this is just his introduction. There's not too much else to discuss here. After we talk to Ram in the Green Room, we can go into this doorway, leaving Susie and Rouse behind, and on the other side of this doorway is a hallway that leads us to another door with an S on it. This meaning this doorway is the S rank room. We can only get access to this room if we got an S rank on Tenna's minigame. And once we enter the S rank room, we're greeted to this. a literal dump. Like, we walk into this room, it is greasy, it is green, it is nasty, it is stinky, it is a funky place in here. There's a few people we could talk to in the S rank room, but for this video, all we really need to do is go left, see Ram, and talk to him. This is what Ram tells us.
Ah, Chris, look at you, a dressing room big shot. Cheers, cheers. So how do you fancy the game then? Righto, it ain't much, innit love? Now, I knew you were gonna like it, I knew, so listen up. You see, that game you've been playing, it's not exactly the original. Old Tenna's done a little something here, a little something there, and made the whole adventure some big ol' blasted line from A to B. Primo, boring stuff. But if I know Chris, and boy do I know Chris, that's not what you want, innit? Freedom. That's what you want, chum. Freedom. Well, if I can go hush-hush for a minute here. Chris love, that's what we got backstage. The original game, where you decide what to do. Alright, enough explaining, more gaming. I'll keep an eye out for Tenna. You go have some real fun, right love? There you go. And I'm sure you know, but secret to Tenna, right love? Ah, Chris, stick around here long enough and you'll learn. Freedom is just a thing for big shots.
So what Ram says here is pretty interesting. He says the phrase, freedom is just a thing for big shots. Now, that's really neat. It's really neat because my boy Spamton, the love of my life, that's like his catchphrase. He talks about wanting to be a big shot. Spamton and the phrase big shot are like intertwined. They are like the same thing basically. So Ram saying big shot here immediately makes me think of Spamton. And with Ram already kind of being a weird little guy, my first playthrough had me wondering what's really going on with Ram. What is he up to? Is he going to be like Spamton? Is he going to be worse than Spamton? By worse, I mean, is he going to have even more eerie moments than Spamton? I guess we'll just have to find out. But for now, we could walk past Ram and look for the game that he was talking about. We go left into a room with a console in the middle of it, and we try to interact with the console. We start to boot up a game, but when we do, this happens. The game tells us no controller, so we leave the room, and whenever we do, we see something shining on the ground, and we go to it, we pick it up, and when we do, we see that what we picked up was something called an odd controller. So we go back left into the room, and we try to boot up the game, this time with the controller. Inside the game, we can see a lot of similarities between this one and the one Tenna made us play. A big difference you can notice immediately though is that there's no jolly music. You boot the game up and it's pretty quiet. As soon as you spawn in, there's this room to your right that in Tenna's game, you could go inside and find a key and a health item to buy. But now, when we go in, it is completely dark. We can leave and explore the land around us for a little bit, and as we explore, we can find these monsters. We can walk up to the monsters, we can touch them, we can go through them, but no matter what we do, nothing really happens. We can't hurt the monsters, and the monsters can't hurt us, and they appear to have no desire to hurt us anyways, and so we don't bother anyone we run into. And with a little more exploring, we find this one part of the map that has a basement that we can go into. Going inside leads us to a room with a sword in it. We can go up to the sword and pick it up, and once we do, it sends us back outside the basement and music begins to play. The song that we hear in the back is called Sword, like Adventure Board, the song that I talked about earlier. There is a small eerie vibe to this song. It's not strong. The song itself isn't too scary, honestly, but there's moments in it that make me personally feel just either threatened, bothered, just some weird emotion that always just like blows my mind when listening to it. Now that we have the sword, the monsters that were once not a threat to us begin to attack us. But now we can also attack them, and when we do so, we gain XP, and getting enough XP lets us level up. Leveling up in this game allows you to break higher level obstructions, and so the best way I can describe this is you can find obstructions like cactuses, trees, these weird little shrub looking things, and for a cactus, at level 1, you can't break the cactus, but through killing enough monsters, I believe it's when you hit level 2, you gain the strength to break these cactuses. And so that's the real goal of killing these monsters, because we can explore throughout this entire map, but there's a lot of places blocked off by certain higher obstructions that we can't break due to us being too low of a level. We can return back to that room that was to the right of us when we spawned in, but going into it now, instead of it being a black void, there's now the sentence in white text, "Become stronger." After killing enough monsters again, you can reach level 3, and reaching level 3, you can return back to this room, and there's now the phrase, "became stronger." This is very fascinating because that bad route that I mentioned earlier, the phrase, "became stronger," is also very intertwined with that. And so for me personally, I was low-key tweaking out whenever I first saw "became stronger," because that was sort of indicating what these secret mini games were going to be about for me, because I've played through the bad route, so I'll kind of just tell you now, these secret games in chapter 3 are not directly connected, but they acknowledge the bad route that happens in chapter 2. Playing these secret games is not doing the bad route in chapter 3. I'll repeat it again, it just addresses the fact that there is a possible bad route in this game. Now that we're at level 3, we can go to this one long pathway that we could also enter in Tenna's game, but in Tenna's game we were blocked off by these two cactuses. But now in this secret game, we're at level 3, and at level 3 you can break these cactuses, and walking past them leads us into a snowy white sand area, and in this new area we find a whole slew of new monsters for us to slaughter. There's even this new bird monster. Okay, we can't kill the bird here yet, so we leave this area and explore further into the snow area, finding for monsters for us to kill until we eventually kill every single one, reaching level 4. Once we do this, the music fades away and we can return back to the room with the bird, and since we're at the max level, we can break these trees now and kill the bird. Now with all the monsters dead, and as we look around the area that we committed our mass genocide in basically, we feel this weight on us because there's no music, there's no life, it's just us alone hearing the waves of the area around us. We can return once again to the room that was to the right of us whenever we spawned in, and returning to it, we find a black void again. But if you move around the room a little bit, you can reveal words with your body, and these words spell having fun. We can leave this room, and we have the ability to end the secret minigame, but before we do, there are a few secret rooms we can find. One of these rooms is pretty close by to where we spawn. We break these trees to our left, and doing so leads us to this room that we normally couldn't see without breaking the trees, and going into the room leads us to another dark room. But if we just stay here a little while, this happens. Staying in this room a little while, a pair of pink and yellow eyes suddenly appear in the middle of the room, and once they do, not too long after, they fade away slowly, with eerie laughter sending them off. There is another room similar to this one. It's also close to where you spawn, but instead of going left, you go right. Once you do, you find another room, and going into this room, and waiting a little while, a large eerie grin suddenly pops in, and fades away while laughing. Of course, this freaked me out whenever I first saw it, and well, it wasn't even in my first playthrough. I got it while I was recording the footage for this video, but I still didn't think I would be bothered as much whenever I saw what happens, because I knew what was gonna happen. I had to look up how to get to these rooms, but actually experiencing these moments on your own, it's rough, man. It's freaking scary. After this room, there is a third room you can find, but it's not close to where we spawn. It's in this area where you could break this tree that leads you to a bridge, and going down the bridge leads you to another room, and in this room there is like 50 freaking entrances you can go into, and you can try to go in every single one, but when you do, you'll soon realize they're all basically the same room. On my first playthrough, I went into every single room and was like, okay, these are all the same, what's the point of this area? But then I walked into the middle of the room. Doing this reveals some entity that flies away with a sort of sudden loud noise that scared me a lot whenever I first played this. And lucky for us, for some reason, of course, right, this is one of the few moments that I actually got to capture on video. I got to record myself getting tweaked out by this. So here's a little treat for you.
Ah. Dude, this is actually kind of hard. What? Holy crap, that scared me. What even was that? See you soon.
Thanks, Toby Fox. And after this, to my knowledge, I don't think there's anything else you can do in this secret game aside from end it. And so in order to end the game, we first have to break a random group of trees that leads us into this massive forest. This forest is endless, basically. Whenever you first break into the forest area, you can try to backtrack to where you cut into it, but once you do, you're met with more forest again. And so once you cut into the forest, you're stuck there. After a lot of cutting, we can eventually find ourselves a random chest. Cutting a path to the chest and opening it, this happens. After you get the ice key, a loud ringing repeats in your ears. And once this ringing ends, the game shuts itself off. We can leave this game room and return to Ram and talk to him.
Chris, how was it? Lots of fun? Maybe had a little extra taste of that, you know. Well, regardless, 10 almost came in. Gotta be extra careful next time. Come again next time, Chris, if you fancy. All I want to do is make sure you can play the games you want, Chris.
Playing through this part of Deltarune Chapter 3 was a treat. Looking back on my experience with this secret game, it's almost like I was playing an in real life creepypasta. When I was a young little youngin', I used to always listen to Pokemon creepypastas, Mario creepypastas, Sonic creepypastas, just so many creepypastas about old games like that. And there were stories like Lavender Town, Sonic.exe, of course those classic ones, right? And there's a couple more other creepypastas that their names aren't quite in my mind right now, but I've seen a lot of older game creepypastas like that. And playing this section of chapter 3 it took me back, man. It took me back to being a child, being captured and horrified by some sort of tampering with a franchise I love, you know what I mean? Deltarune, normally pretty funny, pretty upbeat, positive game, aside from a few moments. Deltarune is a really feel-good game for me. And so having an actual moment in this game where it's quiet, I'm voice cracking over here, oh my gosh, I'm getting into this while talking, you guys. These secret games are quiet. There's suspense being built. There is literal jump scares. Yeah, this section of chapter 3 was for me basically like playing an old creepypasta, and that means a lot to me. Took me back a little bit. Took me back to being a young kid. So thank you, Toby. The next thing I want to talk about happens in Tana's next game that he has for the Fun Gang. Each member of the Fun Gang have an ability they can use in these games. Susie, she can throw heavy things. Rouse, he can turn into objects for us to use and walk on, I guess. And Chris, they get a new ability in this second game that Tana has, and this ability is to take pictures. However, whenever they take pictures, the area they took the picture of turns grayscale. Grayscale in Deltarune and Undertale especially too. Grayscale in this game is kind of a big deal because whenever something is grayscale, it's sort of a callback to Undertale a little bit. By this, I mean in Undertale, with all the Gaster secrets we could run into, like the Goners we can talk to, which if you don't know what a Goner is, they're sort of like followers of Gaster, I guess, and they all appear to be grayscale versions of other vibrant monsters that we could talk to in these games. So this sort of tells us Goners are probably different versions of characters in Deltarune and Undertale's world. But of course, Gaster is a pretty odd, scary point of discussion. But all this is to say, Chris, the fact that their photos become grayscale whenever you take them, that has some eerie implications when it comes to Deltarune. It could also just be me overlooking it, and these photos being grayscale could imply that the camera that Chris is using is an old style camera camera because older cameras, I believe, can only take black and white photos. Who knows, right? The next thing I want to talk about is a song that plays during this minigame. This song plays once we take 3 special photos. Doing this allows us access to a raft, and getting onto the raft plays the song Raft Ride, which I described the sound of the song in my bullet points as basically deceptively happy. The song itself is really jolly. Like, it's very childish almost, right? And for some reason, whenever I first heard it, it was like a red flag for me for some reason. Like, I was sensing something bad was about to come up, even though nothing bad happens. And to add even more to this weird feeling of mine, there's this certain part of the song where the song just repeats itself over and over and over again. And it's in this certain part where the song feels at most alarming to me. I'm just gonna play it for you so you can hear it yourself. Do you feel what I feel whenever you hear this? Am I just tripping out again? I don't really know. Now that we're on this raft though, we have access to this entire ocean part of the map, so we can explore a bunch through it. We go find this one secret little lawnmower minigame. There's nothing scary about it, but this shows to us directly that we will be rewarded if we explore the ocean. And doing so, we can find this one island that's above the main island. When we approach it, Tenna notes how he wanted us to explore, but not this much. Getting on the island, we can see an opening to a new area, but this opening is blocked off by a shrub. Susie asks Tenna what this place is, but Tenna just brushes her question off and says this new place is a leftover, whatever that means. Susie further asks him what he means by leftover. He then corrects himself by saying that area is just unfinished, and he almost reveals to us what's past the opening, but he stops himself from doing that and just tells us to move on. The next thing that we go find in the ocean happens when we just swim straight up. There's this large patch of ocean where it's just north. Tenna begins to say that what's up here is also unfinished and we should just head back. But if we decide to ignore him, this is what happens. Ignoring Tenna's wishes, we swim all the way up until we find this white patch of sand or snow, and Tenna interrupts our progression by saying, "Mic cut." He then interrupts our gameplay and sends us all the way back to the start of the map basically. We can try to go back to where we just were, but we get blocked off by these signs saying, "Under construction, keep out." After some shenanigans, we managed to get Tenna to leave us alone to play the game, and with Tenna gone, we can return back to the signs, and Susie uses her strength powers to move them out the way, and we swim past them, and we return back to that white sand area that we were at before, and we swim further past that and we find a raft docking point. So we dock our raft and we see that we're in a new area and we explore. We don't get to explore very much though because we find that we're again blocked off by a shrub, so there's actually nothing else for us to do here, so we just leave. As we do though, Rouse expresses his relief with us leaving, and Susie teases him, asking him if he hates the code. Rouse expands on what he means and says he just didn't know what was past that shrub. The reason why what he says here is interesting is because in chapter 4 we learned that Rouse is very aware of a lot of events that'll happen in the future, and so some things that we experience in Deltarune may seem surprising for us the first time playing it, but Rouse might have already known that was gonna happen, so he doesn't really express any surprise or anything like that. But with Rouse knowing as much as he does involving the future for us, basically, him expressing his concern with reaching a point in our journey where he has no knowledge of what will happen really puts things into perspective, because knowing as much as Rouse does, while it still seemed like a curse at some points, Rouse at least has the comfort that he can be prepared for what will happen in the future. But now with this new area, he has no knowledge of what's going to go down. He is in the danger of the unknown. But having seen all these secret areas that we're unable to further explore due to obstructions, we can infer that there's probably more stuff for us to do in the untampered secret game version of this Tenna minigame. So we beat Tenna's minigame, and if we got an S rank, we can return back to the S rank room and play the secret minigame. But before we do, we can talk to Ram again.
I'm glad you're having real fun, Chris. It's the least I could do. Not often a dark world opens up in your own house, you know? Though, it could, if you ever wanted it to. Sorry, Chris. Don't know what I was saying there. Just go and enjoy the games, eh? Cheers.
We walk past Ram again, and there's a similar ritual for us to play this game like we did the first one. We try to boot the game up, the game says no controller, we put the controller in, the game starts up, and we can play. We spawn in, and we can explore around, finding several openings to rooms, but when we go inside of these openings, they all lead us to the same room with the sword. And we can explore around a little bit more, but there's not much else to do, so all we can really do is just pick the sword up. When we pick the sword up, we're sent out of the room and back to the island, and we can hear music playing again, but this music is slowed down. There's also monsters that you can find, and with the sword, you can also kill them, and when you reach level 2, the music fades away. Also, since you're level 2, when you explore, you can find this waterfall with these shrubs blocking the way, and you can now break them going up the waterfall, leading you to that opening that we saw in Tenna's minigame. Now though, when you go through this opening, you see the shrub that you can now break, and there's also a raft on this island. So getting on the raft, you can explore the ocean again. Of course, the first thing that I would want to do personally was, go swim up and explore that white sand area. But before we do that, there's a couple other rooms we can find. We go back to that lawnmower minigame area, but this time, when we go to it in the secret minigame, going to the lawnmower area leads you to just a room with an opening, no grass, no lawnmower, and going into the opening leads you to this. This room that you enter is different from anything we've seen so far. It's not like the same brick wall room with the black void in the middle of it. It's like this purplish, bluish area, and this room also has these walls that have what almost look like vines growing on them. There's also a song playing in this room called Northern Light. I won't spend an entire 5 minutes talking about the song, but all I gotta say is this one song is oddly emotional. It's probably just a me thing, but I feel sort of sad when listening to it. Basically, this entire room is just telling us to head back to the place Tenna told us to stop progressing in. But before we go there, there's another secret room we could find. If we explore a little bit, we find this island filled with red trees, and there's this one tree that's a more vibrant, more deeper red that we can attack with the sword and break. This leads us into a basement, and in this basement, we can proceed further into it and find a room with Tenna himself inside of it. We can see that Tenna is talking to himself, and we can eavesdrop on this. While we do this, the room and the music is all gone. It's just silent in here, creating a pretty intense vibe. What he tells himself is basically how he just wants Chris to enjoy his games. He expresses his regret with using a game like this that's super old and has a lot of weird stuff going on in it, and we can move right after he says this and he can hear us. When he does, he runs away. Again, nothing too terrifying here. It's just listening in on someone having a personal talk with himself is just a weird, creepy thing to do, I guess, so I wanted to bring it up. But after this, we can move on and finally swim upwards to that area that we couldn't really do anything in before, and we can go to that shrub that we couldn't go past because we had no means to break it. Now we do with the sword, so we do break it, we walk past it, and we inevitably walk up on a door that we open with the ice key. We use the key to open the door, and we go inside, and we find a very ominous room. As soon as you walk in, a song called Glacier begins to play. I'm not freaking illiterate, I'm not stupid, I'm not saying glacier wrong. The song itself is spelled G-L-A-C-E-I-R. It's very weird, I'm not sure why that is, and it's definitely on purpose, but I'm just curious why Toby went out of his way to misspell glacier. What's the lore relevance to that? And the fact that this song is basically named Glacier is very fascinating because what we're about to see in this new area, everything will come to make sense soon. I'd say this room and this part of the second minigame is so far Deltarune's equivalent of the True Lab. Now what goes down in here isn't truly horrific like the True Lab, but for me personally, this new area in this second minigame makes me almost as uncomfortable, if not a little bit more so than how the True Lab made me feel in Undertale. And that is purely because of the music. And of course some unnerving events happen down here, but the sound of the song Glacier, it's so it speaks to me in a way. I don't know why, I don't know how freaking Toby does this with his songs, but it is something about the sound of Glacier. It just makes me uncomfortable, makes me scared, it makes me sad, and that's why this song is in my top 5 favorite OSTs from these 2 new chapters, and probably in Deltarune Deltarune in general. Like, it's just so many emotions I feel from it. Now, whenever I say top 5 OSTs, I mean in terms of how it makes me feel and what I could say about the song. But like, obviously I'm not just going out of my way to listen to Glacier on my own, because as you can hear from the song, it's pretty creepy. And I feel like if you're listening to this song on your own, you might be a bit disturbed as an individual, because listen to it, dude. It's freaky. I hate it. But I love it as well. I hate it because I love it. Or no, that's wrong. I love it because it's good, but I hate it because it scares me. That's why. But yeah, the song is just bone chilling, dude. And it's like echoey too. Can you hear it whenever, like, I have it playing in the back, and I hope I'm not talking so loud that you can't hear the song. But from what you can hear, like, honestly, just give me your thoughts on the song too, because I'm so curious on everyone's opinions of this one song, because I freaking love it. Like, okay, I'm gonna move on from the song after this. I'm re-listening to it again, and I want to replay this one part of the song for you. So here it is. That one part of the song is my favorite. I don't exactly know why, but that is like, whenever I listen to this song, because sometimes I will admit I do kind of listen to this song in my free time, just sometimes. And when I do, whenever the song reaches that one part where it's like boom 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 boom, I'm not replicating it well, but I just showed it for you, so you know what I'm referencing. Yeah, that's what invokes the most emotion for me. So yeah, enough of this song. Great job, Toby. As always, I hate this man for how good he is at making music. Like, how do you do it? How do you do that? This new area that we can explore, we can find a lot more monsters for us to kill. And so, we do so. We slaughter as many animals. That's a weird way of phrasing it. We slaughter as many monsters as we can. As we explore looking for monsters to kill, we could find this one room that tells us the sentence, "Follow the white cloak." As we search for whoever or whatever this white cloak is, we can stumble upon another room that has another sentence that tells us, "The forbidden path began with ice magic." After killing enough monsters, we can find this one room that has more path to progress on further, but it's blocked by these red orange vase looking things. So now, after killing enough monsters and getting to a higher level, we can break these vases, walk past them, and we can find someone that appears to be the white cloak. Something we can do to the white cloak is attack it, and it won't fight back, it'll just take it. But whenever we attack it, we could just keep on attacking it and it won't die. We could just attack it forever. Whenever we leave the room, the white cloak begins to follow us, and when we attack, the white cloak follows up our attack with an ice spell. Using the white cloak's magic, we can freeze some of these monsters, allowing us to do some puzzles that would have previously been impossible without their frozen carcasses. We can do some puzzles with frozen monsters that involve us moving their frozen bodies onto buttons that we can't step on. There's a couple puzzles that involve stuff like that, where we have to freeze monsters and use their bodies to complete a button puzzle, which is very creepy and very scary and gross and nasty and ew. After a lot more exploring, and after we get ourselves in sort of this like endless maze that if you don't know what you're doing, you can kind of get stuck in here for a little bit, we finally find ourselves going down this one singular path that leads us to another door. This door that we find, we can open it, and this is what happens. After we open the door, we see the two phrases, the first one being the ice key was used up, and after that we see the phrase she was used up. After we see that second phrase, the snow cloak vanishes. We enter inside this new room, and inside of it is pitch blackness, just a complete void. While looking around, a voice suddenly begins to talk to us.
Well then, you found my secret hiding place. But there's nothing here, is there?
After this mysterious character stops talking to us, we look around and find something glowing in the dark. Picking it up reveals it to be the shelter key. The voice begins to speak again.
Oh, you found that too? Perfect, just perfect. Thanks for all your hard work, Chris.
Once the mysterious character stops talking to us again, we see the phrase, "You were used up." After this, the game shuts down, and Chris has a mix of weird face. Like, they make a face of what could be either guilt or a face that shows us they're deep in thought, but they just react to this. Like, they move and show emotion. And that's interesting because Chris rarely does that. We can leave this room and go back to Ram and talk to him.
Trees, how are the games? Just to your liking? What? Someone backstage with you? No, Chris, I was back here on security the whole time. Tenna's really starting to stick that nose of his around, though. Sorry, but I think we're gonna have to make the next one the last one. Chris, sure you're feeling normal? Well, you are talking to a power strip, so maybe not.
Okay, here's another fun story for you about something that happened to me during my first playthrough of Chapter 3. So, whenever I first played this second secret minigame, I reached the point where you find that first door that you can open with the ice key, but I couldn't freaking open it because I didn't have the ice key. Because I wasn't aware that you needed to do the S-rank rooms to get like a secret path, you know what I mean? This was my first time learning about that. And so it was around here when I actually restarted the game and then came back and did the first secret minigame, got the ice key from that, then did all the work after that to reach this second S-rank room and to do all the stuff in the second secret minigame, and all that just took me a long time, and I'm freaking stupid. But I'm not really stupid, because why the heck did Toby not make it apparent that this was, if you want the secret stuff, you gotta get an S-rank. So I just wasn't, I'm joking, it's not Toby's fault, but it's just a skill issue, and I was really mad whenever I had to restart because I was having a fun time and I had to go back and do all my freaking work again, so I was bothered. But yeah, all the stuff that went down in this second minigame, especially whenever we entered that new area with the song Glacier playing in the back, it's all very interesting considering that secret route in the second chapter that I mentioned earlier. All the stuff that we see go down in this second secret minigame is basically completely referencing that secret route. I'll name drop it for the first time. That secret route is called the Weird Route. I don't know how much I can reveal about the Weird Route yet because we're gonna talk about it again later, but I think all you need to know right now is the Weird Route involves ice magic from a certain female because you gotta remember, during the second secret minigame, there was the phrase that we saw she was used up, implying the white cloak was a girl. In the Weird Route, there's a certain female that we sort of force to use ice spells on monsters, or rather darkners, to freeze them and kill them. That's all you really need to know, I guess. Like the first secret minigame, this second one is really personal for me. I freaking love it. It completely doubles down on the creepypasta feeling for these secret minigames, and it's just beautiful, wonderful, awesome, fantastic, great, nice, beautiful. I said beautiful already, but you know what I mean. Every single positive word you think to describe something is how I feel about these secret minigames. We're done with the second minigame. There is kind of a wide gap between the next time we get to play the secret minigame again, but lucky for us, there is some other spooky stuff I can discuss that happens in between this gap. The next sort of spooky moment I want to talk about happens whenever we find Chris's mom, Toriel, in the Dark World. At the end of chapter 2, they make the Dark World in their house, and in this room they make the Dark World in, Susie is of course in there, but so is Toriel sleeping. So we eventually find Toriel here, but we come to learn that Tenna basically has her captive, not in a super malicious way, but he still has her captive nonetheless, so we gotta save her. But Tenna finds out that we find her and takes us away to play another one of his games. But Susie and Rousey are fed up with his nonsense and basically tell him straight up they don't want to play. Tenna then basically crashes out, loses it on us, and forces us to play his games. He locks us up in these little, I think they're called gotcha balls, and while we're in these gotcha balls, Tenna forces us into quizzes, fights, mini games, and while we do all this, the area around us looks quite literally like hell. There's flames around us, and the entire area around us has this red tint to it. There's this sort of intense but pretty catchy music playing in the background called Doom, what's it called? Doom something, I forgot the name, don't get mad at me. Doomboard, that's the name, Doomboard. That's the song that you're currently hearing right now, but there's this other song called Metaphysical Challenge that plays during the quizzes and fights Tenna puts us through. Here's what the song sounds like. Once again, this isn't too scary, but I just wanted to show it to you directly, just so you can like understand that it's sort of like Doomboard. It's sort of intense. Like I said earlier, Tenna puts us through several challenges like battles and quizzes, and he puts us in this one minigame that is a variation of a previous minigame that he made us play that involved basically cooking. It was like a baking minigame, but this time there's nothing to bake with. We just can move around in this little area and do these little jumps and spins in the air, and the reason why I want to talk about this area is because of what Tenna tells tells us before. When we first begin this minigame, Tenna sort of vents to us about how he's sad that Chris and Azriel don't really watch the stuff that he puts on for them anymore, and then Chris drops the news bomb on him that Azriel is at college, and so Tenna says that's stupid. If you need to learn anything, you can learn it on TV, and he leaves us. He just abandons us after that, but he comes back and tells us the instructions to this minigame. Tenna tells us bluntly they're coming out of the pipes. They're crawling out of the pipes. The way Tenna just suddenly says this always sort of creeps me out, because like, what the heck is he talking about? We play the minigame, and the minigame consists of us just jumping around this area with occasional fireballs coming at us, and beneath us there are these two pipes on the left and right side of the screen, and coming in and out of these pipes are these weird black cubes that seem to be the silhouette of an icy cube block. Like icy, it's really weird. He's an entire character in this game. Not really, but like he's like a little guy in the background, and his head is used here for some reason, but it's only the silhouette coming in out of these green pipes. This may not make too much sense, but give me a sec. I'll elaborate in a bit. After this minigame, we talk to Tenna again, and he begins to apologize to us, saying how he knew he shouldn't have done it, that the pipes had to go somewhere. Tenna then realizes another battle is approaching and begs it not to come. After Tenna realizes a fight is coming up, he tells us the family is fighting again. After this, to sort of abbreviate what happens because there's not too much else to talk about when it comes to scary stuff, Tenna just reminisces about the past. The fun gang managed to escape him, and Tenna responds to this by starting a manhunt on them. So going back on what that minigame was and what the heck Tenna was talking about, I don't know if you're able to catch on, but basically what all this weird stuff Tenna talks about might be Tenna's way of either coping or remembering previous trauma he's had dealing with Chris's family. The most clearest sign of this being him saying out loud, the family is fighting again. So I read this theory online somewhere, I forgot exactly where it was from, but basically how the theory goes is that Chris is known to be a little bit of a prankster, right? Before Us the Soul took over their body and just controlled them completely, Chris had a reputation for being sort of a prankster and causing mischief wherever they went, and this theory implies that in the past, since it is established that Chris flushed down a bath bomb down the toilet, causing it to most likely flood or whatever, that Chris might have flushed down ice cubes down the toilet, causing it to get clogged up, or something happening to the toilet, and because of this, Toriel and Asgore, Chris's parents, had to deal with it, and this caused them to argue. Their argument might have been so bombastic and so loud and so dramatic that even the TV faced witness to it and remembered it, which, if that theory is sort of accurate at all, you know, that is in itself scary. Not in the sense of, oh, this moment makes me scared to sleep at night because the boogeyman's gonna come touch me, or it's not gonna like instill terrifying fear within you, but this moment, if it is like that theory, it's scary because it's real. You know what I mean? It's a little bit too real. And another implication that the theory gives off is, if Tenna is this traumatized by that argument, what the heck did Chris see, and how did they handle it? Alright, the next thing I want to talk about, I'm gonna give a little disclaimer, has a lot of readings, so I might do some voices, I might not, but if I do, bear with me because I'm not a voice actor, so let's just see how this goes. The next thing I want to talk about is this chapter's egg room. What the egg room is, to sum it up real briefly, is a secret room you can find in every single chapter, and in this room, you're guaranteed to find a tree and a man behind the tree that gives you an egg. There is also always very odd music playing in the background. Now, for this chapter's egg room, it is extremely difficult to do it. Not in the sense that it's like challenging, like it's hard to actively get the room, but on a first attempt to try to get the room without no knowledge of how to get it, you're probably gonna mess it up because it is just really convoluted, I think. But I won't really explain what it is because it's not too necessary to what happens with the egg room. But basically, after doing some weird stuff, we find ourselves in this area, which if we go down this path and walk towards this spotlight, a zapper appears and accuses us of cheating. If we fess up and just say, yeah, we're cheating, the zapper likes that and asks us where we're going. We tell them we're going nowhere, and the zapper tells us, "Yous was already heading that way, weren't you, Chris. They then teleport us, or not even teleport, they just take us away to a secret room, and while we're in this room, Susie and Rouse are gone. They're just not with us for some reason. In this room, if we go right, we find a book wizard playing a game. We can also play this game with him. If we talk to the wizard in the game, this is what he tells us.
Where could this be? Nowhere? No, this is somewhere. This old tome admires your inquisitiveness. You're very interested in going nowhere, aren't you? Well, I have a ticket there. Yes, I have a ticket there. A ticket to nowhere. But the ticket is somewhere. Yes, it was left here. It was left here by... Oh, I don't seem to remember. You are alone, are you? Good. It's not a good idea to go nowhere with somebody else. Alone is better. I only have one ticket after all. Where is it? That's right, it's in the wardrobe. Why don't you head over to the right?
We move right and look through the kitchen, but nothing is interactable, so we talk to the wizard again.
That's odd. I thought it was in the wardrobe.
We move away from the wizard again and interact with the wardrobe in the room to only find nothing.
What? You can't find the ticket? Odd. Quite odd, considering you've been holding it from the moment you entered the room.
We get off the game and look in our inventory and look at our key items, and well, there it is, there's the ticket. If we look at the description for the ticket, we read as follows. A ticket to nowhere. It shows a map pointing to the left of a red X. After reading this, we can talk to the book wizard face to face. He tells us,
You know, it's quite hard to understand you sometimes. Perhaps you should try speaking up.
We can now leave this room and backtrack in our journey and fight a specific enemy named a Ribic. When we fight this enemy, we can act on it, but before we actually confirm any act option, we go to this act ability called Croak on X. Then we just hold left and we see our heart walk left. Doing this takes us to this chapter's egg room. The music in this egg room is like an 8-bit version of the one I showed you earlier. I don't know if 8-bit is the right term, but like you get what I mean. It's like a more primitive, pixelated, bit crushed version, I guess. Because of this, the music sounds sort of innocent and childish, and to me that makes it all the more ominous to a degree. The footage you're seeing right now is my first reaction to this chapter's egg room. There's no like vocal audio, like you don't hear me talking through it. This video footage was still meant for this video that you're watching right now, but it was also my first reaction to what I saw, so I might go about things in a weird order, so please forgive me. But the first thing I do is I talk to this Blue Rudin. I'll just call him Blue Rudin 1 because there's gonna be a lot of variations of Rudins, so this will just sort of make things easier when it comes to referring to which Rudin I'm talking to.
Chris, you look rather big. Have you been working out? I guess you grew up. Well, stop that.
Before this, I forgot to mention, I also talked to this Red Rudin, and here's what he says.
Copies are monochrome, but you colored each of us with care. Maybe the pink ace was suspicious.
Now, after this, I then talked to the Blue Rudin 1, and then after that, I talked to the second Blue Rudin, and here's what they have to say.
Oh, Chris, what are you doing here? Did you come here to play with us? Chris never wants to play, oh boo-hoo. Why don't you photocopy a Chris to play with us?
There's a couple signs we can read after talking to the second Blue Rudin. There's the sign that tells you you're in an area called Man Country. There's another sign that says it's a man's world. And to the room to the left, there are a few more signs. The one to the right reads, Welcome to the Forgotten Island. This island is a World Heritage Site. And after this, we can read the sign to the left that reads, Non-men are A-OK too. Now we can talk to the third Blue Rudin, and they tell us,
Chris, someone was looking for you, though I don't remember who. Did you try behind the tree?
Finally, there's another two Rudins we can talk to. We talk to the first one at the bottom.
I'm trying to see as far as I can, but it doesn't look too good.
This first yellow Rudin moves out the way so we can look through the binoculars, but when we do, it's just gray, like there's nothing to look at except for like maybe gray grass, I don't really know. And after getting off the binoculars, we could talk to the first yellow Rudin again, and this is what they tell us.
Talk about lousy real estate. I sense nothing but evil from that place.
And finally, we could talk to the last yellow Rudin, and they tell us.
We are the 7 flying aces. To cheat at cards, you copied 7 aces. It didn't work well. We got lost in the couch and ended up here. There aren't 7? Well, you named us. If you were good at counting cards, you wouldn't have needed to cheat.
After talking to everyone here, we turn right and go up into the room with the tree with the man behind it. We go to talk to the man, and here is what he says.
Well, spring changed to summer and summer changed to cold, and sure enough, I am the forgotten man. Will you forget me too? Are you sure you have forgotten me many times before? Even if you meet me, I will be forgotten thereafter. Sometimes I even forget myself. I ask again, will you forget me? You'll remember me? Well, in that case, forget about it. I am just a man. Listen well to my story. Once upon a time, the whole world looked like this. Do you think so? Really? You believe something so absurd? I am happy to hear it. Let me continue. Well, the world changed. Society was developed. The earth was covered in water. Dinosaurs appeared. An ice age. Actually, there are still dinosaurs. Is it mixed up? In any case, this island is the only place left I can talk. Do you understand what I am saying? Funny, I haven't the faintest clue what it all means. But one day this island will disappear too. We may not meet again in that case. Did you want to meet again? Oh joy. I'll tell you my schedule, listen carefully. On Thursday I go to sell the donuts. On Friday I toss the leftovers in the dumpster. On Saturday I let it cool on the windowsill. On Sunday I harvest the wheat. Hold your breath, head to the left and count backwards to 100. Did you remember to write that down? How very kind of you. Please take this to remember me. Although you may lose it in another day. So be sure to put it somewhere. There's no shame in an egg. You are very opinionated. I like you. You may forget me, I may forget myself. But I will remember your kindness. Now this island will disappear soon. You must depart. If you will, we shall meet again at that place. Whether 11 hours or 11 years, Deltarune will be waiting. So take your time, wash your face and get dressed.
We can walk away from the tree, and I want to see if you notice anything different about Chris. If you don't, that's fine, because they're just how they normally look in the dark world. However, whenever we first entered the egg room, we were in our light world outfit, so basically how Chris looks normally. And whenever we talk to the Eggman, when we walk out from behind the tree, we're back to how we look whenever we're in the dark world. I don't exactly know what this means, and I didn't even notice it the first time whenever playing, but it's fascinating that this happens. We walk to the place where we entered in from. Whenever we try try to walk out, whiteness begins to take over our screen. Static can also be heard growing in volume. All this happens before we're transported back to the TV world. So after looking back on what happens down in this egg room, I came up with a small theory. It's not so much a theory as it is just a thought, but I want you to hear me out real quick. So in Undertale, we play as the character Frisk, and as Frisk, we have the ability to save and reset. This ability in Undertale, it's explained that we have this ability through the power of determination. In Deltarune though, with us playing as Chris, I don't believe there is a clear explanation as to why we can save and reset yet. To be fair, we can't really reset in Deltarune. We have the ability erase instead, but you get what I mean. We have these sort of omnipotent powers that allow us to save the game and all that, but it isn't explained yet, and it most likely will be. So my thought is, what if Chris has the ability to save and erase because of their history with cheating? That's kind of it. That's the thought. Because this egg room brings up the fact that Chris is a cheater. They cheat a lot, apparently. And to get to this egg room, we have to tell the zapper that we cheated. So Chris is a known cheater, apparently. And so maybe they did something in the past that gave them ability to cheat at life, to save and erase whenever they can, but at the cost of their freedom, maybe. So their freedom being the ability to control themselves, their body. And they lose that freedom through us. So what if, because they cheated, they gained the ability to save and reset, but now have to deal with us controlling whatever they do? Small little thought. I'd like to hear your thoughts. It probably doesn't make sense too much when you really look at it, but I just thought of it on the go when writing the script, and I just wanted to convey it to you guys. I want to hear you guys challenge that thought. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the entire egg room. Yeah, lay it on me, because the egg room itself is super mysterious. Can't really commentate too much on it because it's just odd. Like, it's not really meant to make too much sense yet, and I don't know if it even ever will make sense, but right now it is just a mysterious little area. One more thing I want to bring up though is that in Undertale, whenever we see the secrets involving Gaster is sort of implied to be, or not implied, I believe it's outright said by some of his followers that he has been forgotten across timelines. No, I'm lying to you. I'm not sure actually. I'm not caught up on the Gaster lore, but I do know that there is this Goner character named Goner Kid, I'm pretty sure, and he basically tells us, what would we do if there was a world where we didn't exist? Everything was the same, it's just we didn't exist. And the reason why this phrase is important is because Gaster, someone that has been said by name in Undertale, doesn't really exist in Undertale, you know what I mean? And so since Gaster's probably been completely forgotten in Undertale probably, and also since this man behind the tree calls himself the Forgotten Man, what if they're the same character? I know that's like the most cheesy, obvious bullcrap ever, but I kind of personally believe the Eggman has to be Gaster. Like it's just so obvious, to me at least. Like, I feel like I'm wrong if I say he isn't Gaster. Now, I may still be wrong saying he is, but like, that is one of my personal crazy conspiracy theories about this game, that the Forgotten Man is Gaster. But moving on, we're finally talking about the last secret minigame we can play in the S-Rank room. Walking inside of the room now, where usually it would be livened up with a couple of NPCs we can talk to, it's now basically empty. So we just head left and go back to play the game. But when we do so, we run into Ram, who is half stone. If you don't know why he's half stone, the reason is, well, okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't really know. I don't know why he's half stone, because what I do know is Ram is a Darkner, and whenever Darkners turn into stone, that is because they're in a dark world that isn't their original one. But Ram, I believe, is in his original world, so I'm kind of confused as to why he's turning half stone. But we can talk to him, and here's what he tells us.
Crease, that's you, isn't it, love? Good show. Ken has been up to this and that and that and this, all sorts of boring stuff. But Chris, oh Chris, you and I know, the real drama happens backstage. That's why I got it ready for you, you know? One last game, and I'll keep watch. Well, just as long as I can. Now Chris, I hate to trouble you, I really do, but you see, I can't really move myself now. If you could just shove me out the way. Yes, that's right. Just like that. Chris, enjoy the game, they love. Chris, I'm an ignorant plug. Can't say I know your motivation, but I saw you make it, you know. The fountain. Could it be you just wanted to have some fun again? Some real fun like the old days. That's been my purpose, you know, letting you play your games, but now that the games are over, makes you think, was it really all such a good idea? Your mother, your poor mother, what will happen when she wakes up? What am I doing? A power strip giving you a lecture. Just play your games, love. Crease, if not for fun, why'd you do it? Mum's the word, innit? Fair play, fair play.
We leave Ram alone and enter the game room, and for the last time, we boot the game up. In this game, we have Rouse and Susie following us, for some reason, even though they're not here playing the game with us. And also, the environment that this game takes place in is very different than the previous two secret games. The previous two have been a sandy environment, whether it be a desert or a beach. This environment, though, is kind of like the opposite, I guess. There's no sandy biome. We're not in a sandy area. It was like a brightly lit nighttime city. Like the previous two secret games that we played, our objective right now is to find the sword. But before we do, we can look around a little bit. As soon as we spawn in, we can walk to this room to our left, and going inside of it, we find that the room is basically almost completely empty, except for the one golden cactus in the middle of it. For some reason, this is like the most random thing ever. I don't know the relevance of this cactus at all. We can leave the room and look around more, and we can find this one golden bridge area, but other than this different area, the entirety of this map looks very similar. We can explore, find dead ends, and overall just not really find anything too important. That is excluding these two specific areas. One of these areas being this place with these little movie blockers. I don't know what you call these, but like it's just like these little fences that you can't walk past. But there's more to this room. We just can't look through it more because we're blocked off. So, like I said earlier, we gotta find the sword. So that's where the second important room comes in. If we look around a little bit more, we end up finding the sword. And when we pick up the sword, you would think, or at least I thought, that this sword would solve our dead end situation. We could go to the movie fence blockers and break those, but we can attack them and nothing happens. However, there's a small little sound effect that plays that usually only plays whenever we hit like a tree, but we're like at level 1, so it makes a little think sound, implying that we're just too weak to break it at that point. But since we can't break these fences, we probably have to look for some monsters to kill to get us to a higher level. But I haven't mentioned this, there's no monsters in this area. Throughout the entirety of us exploring, we couldn't stumble into one single monster. And so, if there's no monsters for us to kill, by a process of elimination, the only thing for us to kill is Susie and Rouse. After this, we can move on and progress past the fences, walking down this long, dingy, freaky, dark alleyway until we can stumble across what looks like a sewer hole, and we can go in and we find ourselves in a brand new area. This area has a song playing in the background called Bit Roots, and the reason why the name of the song is interesting is because whenever we were doing Spamton's little side quest, we have to go into the Queen's basement. The Queen is the main antagonist of Chapter 2, so that's why she has her own basement. Well, they're not, just because she's the antagonist doesn't mean she needs to have her own basement, but she has a basement, and we can go inside and look around. But in this basement, there's a song playing in the background called Digital Roots, and comparing the sound of Digital Roots to the sound of Bit Roots, aside from the name of the songs, the sound of the songs as well are also very similar, which makes sense because Spamton's side quest in Chapter 2 and this side quest we're doing in Chapter 3, they both have similar conclusions. In this new area, we find a lot of monsters for us to kill, and honestly, a couple of these monsters freak me out. Two of these monsters being these weird mask looking ones that float at you to attack you, and there's this other yellow looking monster that is sort of passive when you first meet it, but it's not really passive, it's more so just unable to attack you. But in this room that you find it in, there are these flowers that you can kill, and as soon as you destroy all the flowers, this yellow monster comes booking at you full speed very suddenly, and it kind of caught me off guard whenever it first happened. Another interesting room with its own interesting monster is in here, where once you enter the room, there is a shadow monster at the other end of the room, and it mimics all of your movements. In this room, there are two buttons. Us and the monster mimicking us go to press each button, but when we do so, we lock ourselves in this room with the monster. We begin to move again, but when we do, we see that now we're only controlling the shadow monster. Us controlling the monster can move throughout the room, but there's not much we can do, so we just walk up to Chris, and when we do so, they attack us and kill us. Doing this though gives us control of their body again. Chris doing this caught me off guard because, as we've already kind of established in this video, Chris never really does anything without us commanding them. So to see one of the few actions that they have full control over, and the action they do is to kill us basically, it's a little creepy, but understandable sort of. After killing all the monsters, we become a high enough level to break these vase looking objects, and so once we do, we find ourselves walking down a long hallway, and we eventually stumble upon an in-game tenna. We can hear him talk to himself again, and here is what he says. How did things turn out like this? Keeping poor Toriel all locked up. If only he hadn't abandoned me, my old partner. I was gonna put him on TV, make him a star. I gave him everything I had, my life advice. All he had to do was tell me what his little secret was. His secret to being a big shot. It took a little sweet talk, but just when I had finally gotten him to sign the deal, he suddenly had to take a phone call.
This must be a very, very interesting.
His face turned pale, and he ran out the room with the receiver hanging. So I went to pick it up, thinking it was finally my chance to be a big shot. But there was nobody there. That little freak ripped me off. I wish they never brought that laptop home. Chris, I didn't see you there. I did what you said, Chris. Just like our deal. You aren't gonna turn me off again, are you? After Tenna finishes talking, we stab him and kill him. Only the in-game version of him, but you get the symbolism there. We move forward, going down a long hallway, until we suddenly find ourselves in a forest. Walking throughout this forest, we suddenly find an in-game version of the shelter. The shelter in Deltarune is really important. There's a lot of theories behind it, there's a lot of scary implications with it, but the fact that it appeared here, just sort of out of the blue, sort of made me lose my mind when first playing, and it's telling us something crazy is about to go down. Whenever we approach the shelter, Chris resists us, and so we try to move on closer towards it, but Chris takes control over the handle and moves us backwards bit by bit, but we resist their resistance and proceed on towards the shelter, opening it and going inside. Inside the shelter is a dark area, but we can still see where we're going kind of, and somebody begins to speak to us.
Chris, oh Chris, is it fun, Chris? Playing around like this? That's why you're searching for them, aren't you? The shadow crystals. And the shadow mantle I'm holding. Do you honestly think you'll get what you want? No, part of you is just enjoying this, isn't it? Oh, don't make that sour face. I can see in the dark, you know. The question is...
Can you?
After whoever this is stops talking, it starts to laugh and begins a battle with us. And this individual appears to be a flying piece of cloth with an odd jack-o'-lantern-esque face. This is one of the secret boss fights in Deltarune Chapter 3. I really hate this fight. It gets me so worked up. This is one of the only fights in Deltarune that gets me like mad for some reason. It's because it's so freaking... I'm not gonna get into it, I'm sorry. Who this character is though, well, this character, if you haven't sort of caught on, is the same one that's been talking to us throughout these secret games. By the way, this character is, I believe, named Eram. The reason why I think this character's name is Eram is because there's this theme that plays while we hear Eram talk before they begin the fight, and this theme is called Eram. Also, the name Eram is mare backwards, like nightmare, so that's interesting. Even if their name isn't Eram, we're just gonna call them that because it just makes the most sense for the time being. So Eram here is the person that's been talking to us throughout these secret games. Now, going back to the fight with Eram, during this battle, they do a lot of really annoying attacks that get me super freaking angry, really mad actually. Like whenever I fight this dude, I get really mad. But they do have a very interesting attack. What this attack is Eram zips between the room, and after each little zoom they do, whenever they stop, they plant a monster down. And this monster has the same facial features that we saw in the first secret game in those two secret rooms that had the pink and yellow eyes and the big freaky smile. It's interesting that Eram has this attack because, well, there's a variety of reasons. For one, it's another instance we get to see whoever this pink and yellow eyed character is. It's another instance of us seeing what they look like a little bit aside from just their eyes and teeth. And it's overall pretty interesting that Eram uses an attack involving this mysterious character. But after beating Ram, after defeating Eram, they begin to talk to us again.
There, that's what I wanted to see. Flickering red like pretty little flames. Your eyes can't hide it, Chris. Without play, the knife grows dull. Well, enough of that. We both have work to do. So if you want this mantle, hurry up and take it. If you can reach it.
After this, Eram teleports away, creating an opening for us to go through, and when we go through it, we find a chest at the end of the hallway. Going up to the chest though, we find out that we're too short to get it, and so all we could do is just walk right. However, whenever we walk right, the 8-bit Chris walks out into the real world where real Chris is, which is freaking crazy. Like, that was insane. And they walk down to Chris, and Chris turns towards them. Imagine that, right? Imagine you're playing a game with like a smaller version of yourself, but even then, it doesn't even have to be a smaller version of yourself. It's just you're playing a game in general, and then you command this character to do an action, and this action causes this character to walk out into the real world and walk towards you. It is freaking crazy what's happening right now. With us controlling the smaller Chris, we can make them walk towards the real Chris, causing the Chris to back up, and we can actually attack Chris, making them fall over, and we walk away after this. After us as the smaller Chris walk away, we regain control of the real Chris, and we can control them to walk into the game, walk towards the chest, and grab what's inside of it. Inside of it is the shadow mantle. What the heck, dude? This game is crazy. Deltarune is a crazy crazy freaking game, y'all. And that about wraps up all the secret game content for this chapter. I've already sort of discussed all of my thoughts involving these secret games, but I just need to take a moment out of this video to talk about my beloved Ram. For some reason, after I started playing Deltarune, I had like a month phase of me just like not even being obsessed with Ram, but like I just also couldn't get him out of my head. It was something about his design, something about how the way he talked, his relationship to Chris, his existence in the game. Everything about him just fascinated me so much because he is like, I don't know if I've dived in on this yet, he is like the biggest red flag for someone being a secret boss in a chapter. Like I totally 100% thought Ram was gonna be the big bad for this chapter. Not literally the big bad, but like the secret boss. It's clear that he's set up to sort of be it, but it's kind of obvious that he isn't because of how obvious it is that he will be the secret boss. Because Toby Fox doesn't do super predictable stuff. He's not gonna make someone appear in the most obvious way to be the secret boss for a chapter and make them the secret boss, because that's also just kind of boring. But that still doesn't change the fact that Ram has these signs, and the signs that he has that makes him seem like he would be the secret boss is what makes him so fascinating to me. And also Ram's stupid little face, like why is he such an he's so expressionful. There's so that's not the proper word for that, but he's got so many expressions. It's like so weird. Like he has this stupid smug face he makes. He has this weird face where he turns off to like his right and he's like sticking out his lips like, what are you doing? What the heck are you doing? And he has these weird little poofs on his noggin. Like, is that hair? Are those ears? And apparently whenever people draw Ram for like fan art, they give him a beard. Does he have a freaking beard? He doesn't look like he has a beard to me. Is it these three little freaking lines at the bottom of his face? That's not beard hair. That's like shadows probably. I don't know. They might be beard hair, but like I love Ram. Okay, I'm sorry. This is an unnecessary tangent, but Ram fascinates me a lot. And also seeing him half stone, basically dying, I guess. It was very hurtful for me because I love Ram a lot. But yeah, that's all the secret game content for chapter 3. And so if there's no more secret games for us to play, what else is there to talk about? Well, bada bam, there's a couple things we got here. Well, for one, after we get the Shadow Mantle, we can progress throughout the story and end up fighting Tenna himself, but after we beat him, we make amends with him and we become friends again. After this, Tenna willingly gives up Toriel to us. As soon as he's about to give Toriel to us, however, my boy gets murked basically. He gets his arm slashed off. Susie confronts Tenna's assaulter, and whoever this is has their back turned towards us, and when they first look at us, they begin to try to take Toriel. Susie gets in the way of this though and stops them, but whenever she does this, whoever this character is, they begin to back up and we pursue them. Whenever the fight begins, we learn that this character is the Roaring Knight! The reason why this is such a big freaking deal is the Roaring Knight has been sort of set up throughout the first 2 chapters in like small little tidbits, and me personally, I thought the Roaring Knight was going to be an endgame character, and they still kind of are, but like I thought we would only see them at the end of the game, not at the end of chapter 3, which is we're not even halfway through the game and they're here and they're just here and we see how they look and we fight them. That's a big freaking deal. Yeah, the Roaring Knight reveal is cool on its own, but I didn't just bring up the Roaring Knight to talk about how much I love them and think how cool they are, because there's some scary stuff to talk about here. So of course the Roaring Knight visually is kind of cool, but there's just some eerie stuff about it. Let me elaborate. Whenever we see the Roaring Knight, there's a time whenever it turns towards us, and whenever it does this, its arms go limp and it begins to like drool. Like, what does that imply? Does that imply that whoever this is just like a zombie or like a mindless cocoon for some sort of like grander thing? Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, the fact that it's like drooling tells me that whoever the Roaring Knight isn't in complete control of himself, I guess. You know what I mean? And that's kind of important because we're about to dive into the final sort of topic that is scary for this chapter that I want to discuss. So the next and final scary thing that I want to discuss for chapter 3 begins with us walking into this B rank room, and in this room there's a massive gotcha ball machine. We can pay several varying amounts of money to get different rewards, but if we put in $1,225, this happens. The calm, jolly music that was once playing before cuts away instantly, and now when we look at the gotcha ball machine, there is an opening at the bottom. So we go in, looking throughout the room. We can soon learn this entire room sort of is like an infinite loop. We can just walk endlessly and find nothing of use. After some hard looking, we can eventually find a small blue gacha ball dispenser. Here's what happens when you interact with it. Once we interact with the machine, we get a capsule, and inside it is a dark triangle that seems to be made of something like lacquer. Once we try to grab it though, it falls out of our hand and we can't find it after that. We then get text after this telling us that what we actually couldn't find is our hand. After we read this, we get sent back to the green room. The events that go down in this mysterious room are pretty eerie. The music that plays in it is dreamlike, and that pairs well with the infinite space that we can explore. And this room kind of reminds me of living through a memory, but one so old that everything is kind of jumbled up. But I want to go back to the music of this room. The music that plays in this room can also be heard in a secret webpage from an event called the Spamton Sweepstakes. This song is called Find Her. Who is her? I believe it's a character named December Holiday. She's this mysterious character that's missing in the world of Deltarune. There's several theories that try to solve what happened to her, but I'm only going to cover a few I like because of the creepy implications from them. The first theory I have as to where she could be is in the game files of Deltarune. In the files, we could find text that seems like dialogue of someone talking to themselves. We also learn through this dialogue that when they talk, they can't decide if they hear themselves or not. The only other dialogue I know of, I believe, came out with the release of the new chapters. This dialogue tells us that whoever this individual is, they've had a nightmare that seems to be similar to the place they're in right now. They then begin to question if they're in their nightmare or everything else they've experienced before was a dream. They begin to talk about things they did with their life that gave time meaning, like waking up for breakfast or watching late night television. Now though, time is so screwed up, they can't tell if they've been in this darkness for weeks, months, or possibly even years. They're so clueless about their situation, they have no idea if they're alive or dead. All they know is their surrounding area, a black, silent void. The only thing that gives their situation substance is a weird scratching noise they hear occasionally. They know no one can hear them, but the scratching noise gives them the feeling that someone is listening, and they value that and whoever is making the scratching noise very deeply. Man, ain't this just some sad stuff? Now, whoever this is, even if it's not Des, the text I read from them just makes me feel awful for their situation. The concept of being in a consuming, cold and quiet darkness is freaking terrifying to me. Time is basically meaningless here. Memories you cherished, memories that gave life value, serve no purpose other than to make your time here all the more miserable. It makes me super sad imagining that this dialogue probably belongs to Des. But also, if we go back to the mysterious room with the blue gacha ball machine, we got the information that once we dropped the triangular object, that our hand disappeared. Is this text telling us that what happened to Des is that she just up and disappeared? She wasn't taken in some rough kidnapping incident or involved in some violent tragedy, but in one moment she existed and the next she didn't. Just poof from reality like magic. Nothing is certain, but that's also the reason why talking about Des can become such an eerie topic. I have no genuine clue as to what the heck really happened to her or where she really is, but with the information we do have, she most likely isn't anywhere good. That was my first theory on where Des is. A lot of people also think this is what's going on with December right now, and it makes sense, but there's also another fate that I think she could be experiencing right now, and this leads into my second theory on where the heck Des is. Now, I gotta clear this up. This theory isn't so much focusing on where she is, but rather what she's doing and who she is now. I won't stay on this theory for too long because we're so close to talking about chapter 4, so I guess, just to say it bluntly, I think December is most likely the Roaring Night. I won't get into all the evidence as to why she is. All you need to know is that that is just what I believe. But if this is the case, that is freaking awful. The reason why that's that's awful is because of what I mentioned earlier, and that was the night seems kind of zombie-like, someone that's alive but not entirely conscious or aware of what they're doing. And I imagine that if Des is the night, that she is herself to a degree, but something is making her appear and act like the night does. I assume the night has some sort of objective that we're just not aware of yet, but I have a feeling that whatever this objective is, it is the sole thing that they're living for. Their existence is to achieve that goal. So minor things like keeping their smelly saliva from drooling out of their mouth, that's just not at the top of their priority list. All they care for is their mission, their objective. The idea that Des is this zombie version of herself as the night kind of reminds me of that real life zombie deer disease. This disease is related to something going wrong with the brain of the deer, causing it to slowly die from malnutrition. This may not be the exact thing Des is going through, but with me constantly bringing up how the night is like this zombie, and Des might also be the night, and also the fact that there is a real zombie deer disease, I just feel like I had to bring it up. But after that, I think we're finally done talking about Deltarune Chapter 3. There was just so much to cover for this chapter in terms of horror, and again, I can't state enough, the fact that Chapter 3 basically has become a creepypasta through playing the secret minigames was just so cool to me. Everything horror related in Chapter 3 is cool, but the fact that I basically played a creepypasta, like, that was awesome. I had a whole tangent on it whenever we covered the secret games in this video, so I won't talk about it for too long. And also the death stuff we just covered, looking back on, is just a really sad and creepy thing to think about. I can go on forever, y'all, but we'll move on. It's time. Let's talk about the horror of Deltarune Chapter 4. We're going to church. Chapter 3 wrapped up with the police chief Undyne getting kidnapped by the night and taken down to the shelter downtown. Chris and Susie try to get in, but there's a passcode locking them out, and so their mission now is to find a way to open the passcode. While we're at church, we run into Noelle, and now I finally have the chance to talk about this woman. A lot of Noelle's story goes down in Chapter 2. To summarize who she is, she's this timid girl who goes through an entire journey of becoming a stronger individual. She also progresses a relationship with the crush she has with Susie. It's established that she is attracted to Susie due to Susie being on the surface this edgy, scary person. Noelle is just into that stuff. I'm not just saying this to say it, it's gonna come back up later. Something else I need to mention real quick is that Noelle's mother is the mayor. This leads Susie to think that there may be clues to opening the shelter at Noelle's house. We ask Noelle if we could do our project at her house, and she says yes, because of course she would. So we go over to her house, and there's not much to discuss inside Noelle's house in terms of horror. There's some interesting lore drops. We see more of the beef between us as the Soul and Chris, but yeah, there's not much to talk about. Aside from Noelle's scary mama, we run into her after we, the Soul, return to Chris's body, and they then cause someone to stop us from finding out more about the shelter code. The someone is Noelle's mom, and she walks in this house with this very eerie ambience for some reason. I'm gonna let it play out for you. I kind of get why it's like this serious. It's to represent that Noelle's mama, she don't play games, but I don't like the sound of it. I don't like it one bit. That's about it in Noelle's house. Noelle's mom kicks us and Susie out, and so now we go to look for Toriel. We return to church, where Susie believes Toriel's at, but when Susie looks inside, a dark world reveals itself. We enter inside, and we begin our journey to seal this dark world's fountain. As we do though, we run into the Roaring Night again, and they attack Susie. She commands that we stop the Roaring Night, as this is one of the few chances we'll ever get. We persist towards the night, but even if we reach the night, we suddenly stop our pursuit and get overwhelmed with attacks and fall backwards. Chris and Susie recover from their fall, and we can hear Rouse off in the distance talking to himself. Susie calls to him and he comes over to us, but when he does, it's easy to notice something seems off with him. We all group up though, and we begin to look throughout the dark world. As we do, we see messages of a prophecy. Rouse claims the prophecy is always accurate. This will be important later. We find another piece of the Mufasa. We find another piece of the prophecy, but it gets broken suddenly, leaving the fun gang in complete darkness. And around here is the next spooky moment I want to talk about. In this darkness, we can step on these yellow buttons. Doing so creates a yellow ripple effect that illuminates the area around us. And as we're looking throughout the darkness using these buttons, we suddenly hear a screech and Rousey tells us to run. An intense chase begins with this mysterious entity until Susie finally finds light. She prepares herself to battle whatever's been chasing us, but then, suddenly...
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm! What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm!
My love, my one and only, the old man, also known in Undertale as Gerson. I love Gerson so much, guys. This is a horror video, or at least that's what I want it to be, but I have to let it be known, guys. I love Gerson. What the heck am I doing? Guys, I freaking love this old man. He is so awesome. Throughout this entire chapter, when things are down in the dumps and us, Susie and Rousey we're just struggling with some stupid crap, my boy Gerson is always there, looking fine, looking delicious, and he's just the best, man. I am a straight man. The only exception is this green turtle dude. I'm in love with him, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. I'm not sorry at all. I love Gerson. But moving on. After we find Gerson, we leave this dark area, and we eventually go into Gerson's study room, and we find a door leading to the dark fountain. But right now it's locked, so now we have to look through the dark world to try to find a way to open it. Exploring for a bit, we're eventually led into this room with these tall bookshelves. To enter this room, we needed to do a piano puzzle. Susie confronts Rousey about something he said earlier, about how he knows the prophecy. The prophecy is basically the future, so Rousey essentially knows the future. This means Rousey most likely knew how to do this piano puzzle, so Susie is curious as to why he didn't speak up about anything and just let us do the puzzle on our own. Rousey changes the subject abruptly, saying that he found a light, and then he activates some switch, but whenever he does, the floor is gone and we fall. When we land, Rousey heals us, but we then suddenly hear a deep voice talk to us. The voice repeats how we should leave, but we progress further until we eventually stumble upon this person talking, but we can't make out any of their features in the dark. All we see is their glowing eyes. We engage them in battle, and all of the suspense that was built up for this fight fades away because this entire fight is basically a YouTube poop. This character that we fight is someone named Jackenstein, but he's just a sweet little guy. Even after you beat him, he's still good people. But onto a moment that actually bothers me. We reach it on our journey to find this chapter's secret boss. We're out looking for notes to play to help solve a secluded golden piano puzzle, and a room with some of these notes can be found climbing up here. This is another one of those rooms where it's just completely dark. The only light that we get comes from these ripples that come from our feet. These ripples reveal these tall silhouettes, and interacting with them gives us the vague description you hear whispering. Walking around these figures can eventually lead us to a singled out figure with a white glow around its head. The figure tells us should be up there, up north, before vanishing with an ominous sound effect. Walking north of the room leads us to a path that shows us some notes to the golden piano puzzle. There's another room like this that we can find behind this waterfall. Inside, we use the ripples from our feet to illuminate this weird hair tree thing. It literally just looks like a living piece of hair, if that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of something I'd see from Amori. So whenever I first saw it, I kind of had some Vietnam flashbacks to that absolutely awful game. Going deeper into the room, our walking begins to slow down as it sounds like we begin to walk through thick mud. The mud gets thicker and thicker as we proceed, but we finally escape and step on a blue button, revealing more notes to the piano puzzle. After we step on it, however, we hear the screech from the mysterious creature that chased us earlier right before we met Gerson. Rousey once again tells us to run as we see this odd entity turn, and we begin to book it out of there. As we try to escape, the frickin' mud gets us to slow down again. Whatever this hellspawn demon thing is, it begins to catch up and attack us. We desperately try to find an escape, but once again, my goat Gerson saves us and we get away from the creature. Okay, I think I covered the two most interesting rooms that are connected to the secret boss for this chapter. In each of these rooms, they both set up this anxiety in you through forcing you in this dark, isolated area. And especially in the second room, it's worse because you're forced to walk in mud, basically, and it gets thicker and thicker and thicker as you're getting chased down by whatever the heck that weird thing was. And at least for this chapter, these required rooms that you needed to go into in order to get the secret boss for this chapter were pretty eerie, and that falls in line with the pattern of all the previous chapters. Like in chapter 2, you gotta do some weird scurry stuff to get the Spamton secret fight, and in chapter 3, you do all the secret mini games to fight the weird 8-bit ERAM boss. I also gotta say, I've been saying secret boss for this video when referring to like Spamton's boss fight or ERAM's boss fight, but the term secret isn't like their official name. I just wanted to clear that up. The term secret boss is just the phrase I've been using to refer to characters like Spamton and his fight and ERAM. But yeah, I just needed to clear that up, and I already forgot what the heck I was saying, so I guess we'll just move on. There's a lot of story in chapter 4 that I'm just kind of speed past. There's this one moment I just really want to talk about. I've sort of been doing that anyways, but I just kind of needed to make that clear. We're kind of skipping a bunch to get to this point. After we seal the dark fountain, we exit the dark world and we see that it's nighttime outside. Susie notices another dark world behind her, but it's locked away by a code. Susie tells us that we have to find Gerson and that he might know how to get in. Susie thinks that since he's a lightener, he should be somewhere nearby in the church. Something I want to talk about real quick is that Susie has gotten really close to Gerson. The old lad has been sort of mentoring her ever since they first met. This chapter's secret boss ends up being Gerson himself, but unlike the previous 3 chapters where the secret boss was way more antagonistic and this ominous, terrifying force, Gerson's fight is almost entirely to help Susie develop her skills. It's surprisingly a lighthearted duel. When their fight ends, Susie asks him why he helped her so much. Gerson tells her it's because she reminds him of someone he used to know. Gerson here is referring to Undyne, someone that he trained and someone who also has a very similar personality to Susie. Returning back to the church, we begin to look around for Gerson, and our search leads us into what I think is the priest's office. Susie looks inside the priest's desk to look for clues involving the code's lock, but what she finds instead is a hammer encapsulated in a glass case. She mentions how the outside is relatively clean, but the inside is full of dust. Chris, without us commanding them to do so, instinctively flinches away from the case. Susie is confused by this, but then she realizes there's a photo of Gerson inside the case. When monsters like Susie die, they turn to dust. There's a ritual monsters do to other monsters' dust. I believe they just spread it on an important item to the fallen monster. So basically what we're seeing here is essentially the aftermath of Gerson's passing. Susie looks physically sickened by this, and now realizes who Gerson was inside the dark world. He was a darkener. The item that embodied him was this hammer. This entire moment with Susie finding Gerson's hammer is not entirely gut-wrenching horror, but it's just the idea that putting myself in Susie's shoes, she just met this mentor that guided her and cared about her in a way that very few people do, and she gets attached to him in such a way that he's almost irreplaceable in her life. And when she thinks she finally gets a chance to meet him, she basically finds his corpse. She had just talked to him not that long ago, but now in this moment she sees his remains. There's a lot of complex and overwhelming emotions someone would go through in a moment like that, and Susie just experienced them all in the span of like a minute. Right after she realizes what happened to Gerson, Gerson as a darkener knew that he wasn't really alive. Before she and Chris sealed the fountain, Gerson asked Susie to rewrite a letter that he made and to give it to someone. The priest, Alvin, who is also the son of Gerson. Susie memorized Gerson's message, and now inside the priest's office, wrote it down. After this, when we interact with the hammer, Susie just tells us not to look at it now. This entire scene is kind of bittersweet because at least Susie has the closure of knowing what happened to Gerson, and also Gerson had his second chance. He had a chance being a darkener to say his final words to his loved one. That is a very sweet thing to know, and for someone like Gerson, he definitely deserves it. But at the same time, we literally we see his body, bro. We see his dust, his body powder covering a hammer that belonged to him. I don't know, man. It's just, maybe I'm looking at this entire thing too grimly, but like I said, this entire moment is just bittersweet. But actually, I enjoyed this a lot. It's very fun to see all the complexities that went into making this moment in the game. It's really neat. Before the next actual moment I want to discuss, I want you to check this out. Does this music bother you? Well, it bothers me. That's probably because it has this reverse sound to it. We only hear this song I think once whenever Susie makes her first Dark World. She does this because she and Chris cannot find any way to open the door, but she thinks Gerson still might know something, so she wants to make her own Dark World and to ask him in there herself. But in her Dark World, whenever we walk away from the fountain, this song begins to play. For some reason, it isn't actually in Deltarune's official soundtrack. In the files, I believe you can find the song's name called alt_church_lobby.audio. Og. I bring it up because I feel genuinely bothered when I hear this song. It makes me almost like depressed for some reason. But the song is actually just a reverse song that we do hear in the official soundtrack. The song's name is A Dark Place. The song isn't scary at all. In fact, it's quite triumphant, but it's like, I don't know why this song messes with me so much. Is it just because it's reversed? What a freaking stupid reason. But like, I don't like the song, y'all. I had to bring it up real quick. Now we get to talk about this chapter's egg room. And this chapter's egg room is probably my favorite out of all 4 of them. Getting in this egg room is so much less complicated than going into chapter 3's. We get here after Susie separates herself from us to go see some important information about the prophecy. With us alone, we go into this hallway that has this long row of church windows. There's this one visually unique window in this group though. It's easy to miss, but in here, this little shape, when flipped, it looks like an egg. In the hallway, we walk towards the different window, leading us into a new room. Here, we can immediately interact with this bookshelf and read a peculiar book. Here is the text inside the book. And so wept the fallen star, making rivers with its tears. Then slowly, from the bitter water, something grew. It looked like glass. Going right after this leads us to what seems to be some part of the prophecy, but all it shows is a house and trees with the word roots. Going to the right, we find an organ kick. We could talk to it and it tells us, I heard something in between. Something in between. It was mixed up. The word grow. Children followed, lost the pointed wood tail. Forest. The poor children. I have no clue what the heck this scrambled message is, but this Reddit post I found and the commenters inside of it helped me possibly unscramble it. So shout out to them. The message unscrambled could possibly say, lost where the forest would grow. The children followed the pointed tail. We can now go in and out of this book room until suddenly we end up in this chapter's egg room. Before we discuss anything that happens in this egg room, I want to talk about the music playing in the back. It's the same song that we hear in all the egg rooms, but like chapter 3, this egg room song sounds different. It is much more creepier, in my opinion. This theme is sort of like Glacier from chapter 3 for me. By that, I mean I like it a lot. The uneasiness of the song is mainly why I like it so much. The entire vibe of it is off, and it somehow manages to be more odd than the original theme, and overall I just like it a lot. The egg room itself is also pretty weird. We enter what I think is like a hospital. There's a blue Rudin secretary standing at the front desk, but something to note is that this is an 8-bit blue Rudin instead of a normal one. The area around us seems to be the normal world, so why is this Rudin pixelated? By pixelated, I mean just like has lower pixels than the normal Deltarune world. We talk to the Rudin, and they tell us,
Chris, there you are. The patients are waiting for you. Yes, I know I'm quite small for a secretary, but knockoffs don't have the right to complain.
Walking further into the building leads us to 3 doors. The furthest left door and the furthest right door leads us to rooms that are occupied, leaving us with the middle door to go through. On this door, we see that infamous tree that we see in all the egg rooms. We go in the middle room, but inside is either complete darkness or our view is just obscured. Walking around, one of the things we can interact with is this sink. When we do, we're told, it's a sink. It would be ridiculous if you painted something and there was nowhere to wash your hands. We can also interact with something that tells us he is behind the tree. Stumbling our way behind the tree, we can interact with the man. When we do, text pops us that tells us, well, there's a man here. Well, he seems to be pointing at something and nodding. We can go further left of this room, and when we interact with it, we're told, someone seems to be painting a tree. However, strangely, they haven't drawn the bark yet. And I believe the last thing we can interact with is this canvas here. We get the option to draw on it. If we do so, we're told the following. Chris picked up a pencil. They began sketching what they had seen behind the tree. But as they sketched, the line began to err, as if the pencil had lost its way. So they started again, drawing over the lines they had already made. Many times, they would suddenly halt or the pencil drifted into a new drawing. So they started over and over and over again. Through many repetitions, their movements became faster and smoother, until without looking, they had completed a sketch in a single wild line. In the end, as a result of layering the sketches on top of each other, the surface of the canvas was nothing more than a monochrome smear. Next, a tree was painted over it. Painted over everything, leaving nothing but a simple still life. After all, there wasn't anything to look at in the room besides a single tree. Chris got up. It seems the painting was complete. but their hand, smudged with graphite, was still moving, as if to trace some unseen shape. An egg was picked up by a nearby easel. After all that, when we try to interact with a man, we're told, well, there is not a man here. And also, we can finally interact with the sink again, and when we do, we're told, it's a sink. You ran the water over your hands and dried them. Between your fingers, a gray crease glittered stubbornly. You can never wash it all away. And that about wraps up all we could do in this egg room, I think. With these egg rooms, I love talking about them because they're always so odd, and odd things always just bother me, make me feel super uncomfortable. But it's also unfair because there's so much especially in this room, to talk about or like to theorize about, but I just don't really have too much to add in terms of all the mysterious stuff we get from this room. The only thing I took away personally from what we read was whenever we interact with the canvas and Chris began to sketch, it's described to us that in this sketch, they would suddenly halt or the pencil would naturally drift into a new drawing. So they would start over and over again, and with each repetition, their movements became faster and smoother. This kind of reminds me of what we do in the game of Deltarune, which is, in battle, we attempt to defeat a monster, but if this monster is too strong for us to overcome, and we end up losing to it, we get the ability to fight it again and again, until we become more efficient at it, and we eventually beat it. Reading how Chris did that with her sketch just reminded me of that, but everything else is just so mysterious. For all of you theorists out there that are watching this video, I would freaking love for y'all to tell me what y'all think this egg room means, what we learned from this egg room. I'd just love to hear y'all's thoughts because it fascinates me so much. And I feel like, especially in the later chapters, these egg rooms are just gonna get more and more odd, and I feel like we're gonna learn something dark eventually from these egg rooms. Something's being set up, and I'm kinda scared as to what that is. But for now, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Going back to us trying to find Gerson, we can find his study, but the usual calm music that played in here normally is now slowed down, making the vibe of the room a little off. Gerson's fireplace is now opened up, so we go in, and the room is pretty dark. The music has slowed down even more, and the further we progress into the room, the darker the room gets, and the slower the music becomes. We see someone that looks like Gerson walk away from us, so we follow them, but they avoid us, and we end up lost in darkness. Susie goes off on her own, leaving us alone to close our eyes and think about what she's doing. We see Susie talk to herself about how she's lost, and that she should use the sounds around her to guide her. She hears a metallic footstep, and we see a green ripple reveal someone that looks like Gerson. She asks if he's okay, but then he suddenly attacks her and does a maniacal laugh. Susie begins to fight the stranger. When their fight begins, this intense song called The Ripple begins to play. And despite Susie fighting who she thinks is Gerson, the music does not reflect his wise, caring attitude whatsoever. Throughout this fight, we hear a robot-like voice whisper us the directions of the stranger's attacks. Susie tries her best to reason with the stranger, but she eventually attacks him and misses. The stranger attacks her again, but Chris comes from the dark to save her. Susie asks us to help the stranger, who she still thinks is Gerson. We endure the stranger's attacks, but there's still no sign of pacifying them. Susie expresses her guilt of making this new dark world. She thinks she messed up trying to see him again, even after learning about his passing. She desperately tells the stranger how she knows she messed up, but it's okay that she could still bring him back to the castle town and make him better. Still, the stranger's attacks persist. Suzy, as a last resort to get the stranger to calm down, shows him her healing magic. This magic having a green glow to it. She throws her healing magic towards the stranger, but whenever the magic hits him, we see something that we already know. This was not Gerson. The stranger laughs, but before anything else happens, Rouse comes and absolutely destroys the stranger. Rouse begins to explain to Suzy that whoever we were fighting wasn't the old man. It was one of the statues in a study room that came to life when Suzy made this dark world. Rouse then explains that Gerson is a unique kind of darkener, and that he most likely isn't going to be in this dark world. As soon as he says this Suzy blows a fuse on him, demanding why he doesn't communicate important information before it's too late. Rouse finally explains himself. He first apologizes and begins to break down. He explains to Suzy how he just knows so much, and he doesn't want to burden us with his knowledge. Suzy asks him what he means by this. He elaborates by saying he knows the rules of this world, and the truth of what the prophecy says. He didn't ask to know, he just does. He once again apologizes, saying he's sorry if he creeps us out. He says, knowing what he knows, it hurts. It finally all clicks for Suzy. Rouse has been acting weird because he was nervous that we'd see the end of the prophecy. Suzy reveals that we almost saw the end, which makes Rouse panic, of course. He begs us just to let him lead the way, and to let him do all the puzzles. His eyes become full with tears, but Suzy calms him down. She tells him that she doesn't need to see the end, and that it's cool if he goes off on his own when he needs to, but the journey is still a team effort. They're still gonna do what they gotta do all as a team, no matter what. Rouse begins to cry again, but this time just out of pure appreciation for Suzy being his friend, and I get that, low-key. This moment hits me in a different way, similar to the moment when Suzy finds Gerson's hammer in the light world. Rouse explaining to us that he knows so much isn't inherently horrific. This entire moment isn't too scary on its own, but it brings up the idea that what if the world had some grand end event, or there was a prophecy that existed that tells us what will happen in our future, and it isn't good. Rouse is one of the few people that fully knows this prophecy. Throughout all these chapters, he's been holding the burden of that knowledge, and the weight of that grew heavier and heavier in this chapter because we were approaching the truth. What he knows, what makes him essentially depressed every single day, was soon going to be knowledge that we would also hold. So it's only understandable that that would terrify it's only understandable that that would terrify him. And seeing the conflict between Rouse and Suzy grow and grow throughout this chapter was super tough because those two are just good little pals. They love each other so much, so it's really rough seeing them at odds. But whenever Rouse explains himself, Suzy, like a freaking boss, resolves Rouse's fear and is there for him. It's really cool. Alright, this is Shook from the future. We're going to move on to the next topic I want to talk about, but there's a couple things I got to talk to you about real quick. For one, I got to thank you for making it this far in the video because this is a long one. I was going to talk about the ending of this chapter and find some horror in that, but it kind of dragged out, and I was really mad at myself because I was looking at my audio for me covering the end of chapter 4, and I still do believe there's horror to be found there, but the audio was just like a recap, and then I just moved on. I just told you what the ending was and then moved on to the next topic, and that was stupid. And so I'm not gonna waste your time. I don't think there's too much to talk about when we approach the end of chapter 4 when it comes to horror. All there is to say is there is a point near the end where we come face to face with the night, and the night creates a second dark fountain inside the pre-existing dark world, and that's bad because that basically creates that starts the end of the world. Basically, when another dark fountain is created inside of a dark world, that starts an event called a roaring, and the roaring brings about the end of the world through things like titans being created and just cataclysmic stuff happening. And so when the night creates this second fountain, the fun gang begin to freak out, and with the creation of this second fountain, what comes after it is a titan, and the design of this titan and the few glimpses we get to see of it is really creepy, and it makes my skin crawl. We see the hand of this titan, and there are eyeballs popping out of it. It's got these long claws. It's just a nasty looking thing to look at. And then after this, we have this intense sequence with the titan where we're trying to climb up itself to avoid its own attacks. And all this drama and tension and action eventually have this climax when we come to meet the titan face to face. And before we actually fight the titan, it has this human look to it, human disguise, right before the fight begins, and then when the fight begins, it takes on this angelic look. During the fight with the Titan's attacks all involve these nasty, dark monsters that have like a variety of designs. There's one that looks like a fetus that just comes flying towards you. There's another more segmented snake monster, like it has these like segments to its body. And there's this red star looking one that has an eye on it. The designs to all these little mini monsters the Titan throws at us really mess with like my personal phobias, because they all got like weird tentacles, weird little like beak pincers, and they have like little itty bitty eyeballs. That stuff always freaks me out. I hate that stuff so much. But if we endure these Titan attacks, we can eventually get the Titan weak enough to where it conceals itself, so it appears that we beat it, but then it begins to freaking heal itself. So it looks like we're kind of screwed then, but we're not screwed, because if you guys didn't know, there's a certain man I love a lot, and I think he also loves me because he came back to life, kinda. It's Gerson, and he saved us from the Titan. He teams up with us, allowing us the opportunity to seal this Dark World's fountain. And after that, that's basically it when it comes to this chapter's horror. The few last things I want to talk about when it comes to the end of this chapter is that after we beat the Titan and we begin to approach the fountain, Susie, she runs off to go see if she can try to find Gerson. When she does, Rousey comes to talk to us, making sure that we're okay after everything that just happened. But he then notices that Susie is missing, and he realizes that she might be approaching the end of the prophecy. So with a look of terror, he goes to run off to find her, and we follow him in his pursuit, but his worries were valid. It's too late. Susie saw the end of the prophecy, but we don't know what she saw. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it hasn't been revealed what she saw yet, but whatever it was, it made her mad, really mad, but not mad at like us or Rousey, just mad that such a thing or such a fate could ever be given any credit, and she just flat out breaks it. She breaks the glass that the prophecy was laid out on, causing her hand to bleed. That's a really rough segment, but that entire moment shows us what kind of knowledge can do to a person, you know? It puts Susie in such a state of denial, and like it just makes me so curious as to what she saw, and whatever it is she did see, you know, Rousey's been living with that knowledge for ever since we met him, basically. And after this, we still, with Susie, seal the fountain, and we go back to the light world, and we go home. And when we go home, Sans is getting jiggy with our freaking mama. That's crazy. That is the craziest tone shift in any game I've ever experienced. And Susie's gone. She just leaves after that, because like, what do you even do, right? You basically defeat like a god-like entity that completely towered over you and your teammates, and it was just like this exhausting fight. And you go somewhere where you think you're safe and you can relax and detox, and then you see this. And earlier I said that was the end of chapter 4's horror. Well, it kind of is until you include the weird route, and there's a small bit of it in chapter 3, but it is really small, super minor. There's like very little weird route content in chapter 3. Chapter 4, however, that is a very different story. That is a very different story, actually. Like, whoa, we're about to get into it, guys. I'm just like having Vietnam flashbacks. Yeah, the weird route for chapter 4, a majority of it circles around that girl I keep on mentioning throughout this video, Noelle Holiday. Remember, she was the younger sister of December, and we first see a lot of Noelle in chapter 2, and because of that, it only makes sense that the weird route begins in chapter 2. The entire idea behind the weird route is us, the player, using Chris to manipulate Noelle into freezing several innocent Darkners, and the aftermath of this causes Noelle to become stronger. We first make her freeze the Darkners that actively antagonize us, but our massacre becomes so widespread and so vicious that we end up forcing Noelle to freeze Darkners that actively try to run away from us. Despite this though, we still tell Noelle to freeze them, killing them in the process. One of the last people we make Noelle freeze is a good friend of hers named Birdley. He's usually this antagonistic, annoying nerd little dude that I think is actually kind of charming, but he still attacks us throughout this chapter. But with him antagonizing us, usually it still remains kind of lighthearted. However, when he attacks us, unlike before where he would attack us for selfish reasons, he now is fighting us solely to save Noelle from our manipulation. When we run into him, we've gotten so far in her head that she doesn't even recognize Birdley as Birdley. She just sees him as another obstacle for her to overcome. She snaps out of it though and realizes realizes what the heck is about to go down. We begin to battle with Birdly, and we eventually tell Noelle to use a spell called Snowgrave on him, and despite her resisting against us, she eventually caves and does Snowgrave on Birdly. Doing this, an ice vortex surrounds Birdly, freezing him in this massive ice shell. Once we seal the fountain, and we wake up from the dark world when we go to the hospital where her father is, and see her talking to him. When she leaves the room, we can also leave and eavesdrop on her talking to herself, and she is basically just trying to make sense of everything she just went through. The commands we gave her through Chris apparently made them sound terrifying, but it seems she listened to us because of this, because of her fear. This game establishes that the things that scare her attract her to a degree. This also explains her romantic attraction to someone scary like Susie, and it also explains why she was so submissive to our commands. That's everything of importance I can remember that happens in chapter 2, so once again we're just gonna skip over chapter 3 because there's not that much Weird Route content that happens in it. So on to chapter 4, the Weird Route begins at the church. We can walk up to Noelle, but she asks if we could talk to her later. Despite this though, we talk to her still, asking her about the key to the bunker, but she mistakes our question as us teasing her about being off key, as prior to us talking to her, she was just singing for the church. Remember, at this point in the story, we're still looking for clues to open the bunker door. We can talk to Noelle's dad and ask him about the key, and when we do, we get to see his thoughts. He thinks that when we brought up the topic of a key, we were referring to his family's house key, and how Noelle was maybe locked out of her house due to her not having the key. Noelle's mom is very protective of important stuff like a house key and other stuff she holds value to, and Noelle's dad begins to think to himself about a story about how in the past, Noelle made these paper snowflakes for her mom's office, and her mom loved the snowflakes so much and valued them so much to the point of just keeping them home instead where they're safe. This made Noelle cry, but later on, she hung out with Chris and did snow angels with him, forgetting the whole ordeal. I feel like the reason why what he says here is important is because he is adding to the good relationship Noelle had with Chris. This is relevant because what we've made Chris and Noelle do in the Weird Route has basically ruined their friendship. Something else I want to bring up is right after we finish talking to Noelle's dad, we can talk to him again, and he tells us how Noelle was wondering if we'd go to the festival tomorrow. Him telling us this tells us that, understandably, Chris and us, we're still fresh in Noelle's mind. After talking to other people in the church to find clues for how to get into the bunker, we relay the information we got to Susie, and Susie discusses with us about the information we gave her, but then Noelle suddenly interrupts and asks us if we would like to study at her house. Susie of course says yes to this because, again, remember, Noelle's mom is the mayor, and if there's any place to find clues for how to get into the shelter, it's probably Noelle's house. Susie tells Noelle that she and Chris are down, and Noelle tells us that she is going to take her dad to the hospital. She walks off, and Susie's freaking stoked. She goes for a high five with us, but we leave her hanging, sadly. Susie thinks we're mad and that maybe we have something against Noelle. Susie makes more attempts at small talk, but with us not reciprocating anything, she says that we should just go. We go to Noelle's house and we sit down to study. Usually when we do though, Birdly calls and asks Noelle to the festival, but here, Noelle's mom calls instead. She tells Noelle that she's not going to be able to bring food home, but Noelle tells her that she'll be fine, that she could just cook herself something. I'm not sure as to why this dialogue is here. I'm not saying that as to say, oh, this dialogue's useless or it's pointless or whatever. I'm just like actually clueless. I'd appreciate it if someone would help me out as to figuring out what this dialogue is here for. Susie distracts Noelle to let us look around for clues. Like before, we go to Des's room and look inside the guitar to find that code, but before we can read it, Chris stops us. As they walk to the closet to lock us up, Chris hears Noelle call out to them. They shove us in a nearby drawer, and Noelle asks if Chris can come to her room to talk. Chris grabs us and takes us back to the closet. They leave and we have access to the vents again. We go to Noelle's room and hear her talk with Chris. And here we go. We begin to eavesdrop on Noelle and Chris's conversation. She tells Chris that she's been waiting for a chance to be alone with them all day. She tells Chris something that happened to her last night. Noelle, in her bed, was trying to sleep, but whenever she closed her eyes, all she could see was snow. Fear consumed her body. She began to think that what she saw was real. She went outside for air, but when she did, she felt a hand grab her by the shoulder. It was Chris's hand, and they began to talk to her. She makes it clear that it was them talking, their voice. Chris apologized to her and told her that what happened at the hospital was a prank. This was referencing something that we did in Chapter 2's Weird Route. It was after we ran into her with her dad in the hospital. Earlier I mentioned that we were eavesdropping on her trying to make sense of the events that happened in Chapter 2's Weird Route, but something I didn't mention is that after we eavesdrop on her, her, we weren't necessarily eavesdropping on her whispering to herself. Instead, we were literally reading her thoughts. In most games, that would be normal, but this is Deltarune. We confront Noelle on what she was thinking to herself, and in doing this, we're basically telling her that we can read her thoughts. So whenever Noelle said that last night Chris grabbed her by the shoulder and told her that what happened at the hospital was a prank, this was what she was referencing. Chris also tells her that everything's going to be okay. Chris's weak, deadpan voice was something she hadn't heard in so long. Noelle got emotional, filled with joy that Chris, her old friend, was back. Noelle asks us if she can say something else. We tell her to proceed. Doing this puts us as the soul in the room with Chris and Noelle. We go towards Chris and repossess their body. Noelle doesn't notice this though, and continues to tell Chris how last night, when Chris came to her, they also apparently pulled a thorn from her finger. And Chris, after this, told her not to mention anything that happened that night the next time she sees them. As Noelle said what Chris told her, Chris suddenly interrupts her by putting their hand on her mouth. Confused, she moves their hand and finishes what she was saying, telling Chris how they asked her last night not to bring up what they did because it would be heard. Chris blocks her mouth again, she moves their hand again. Now concerned, Noelle asks them who is going to hear. We take control of Chris and answer Noelle's question. Our hair begins to flow wildly as a rough wind takes over the room. Noelle hears our response. She realizes that this isn't Chris's voice. She tells us that this has to be a prank again. She thinks to herself about how she recognizes our voice from when we were commanding her in the Dark World in Chapter 2, though she just thinks all of it was a dream. When she thinks this, we again respond to her thoughts, telling her that it wasn't a dream. This causes her to shriek and she quickly pushes herself away from us. She asks us to repeat what we said, hoping that she misheard. We double down and tell her that we heard. She begins to panic and says this all has to be a coincidence. We tell her it isn't. She composes herself as much as she can and asks us a variety of questions to verify that we can hear her thoughts. We answer them all correctly. She asks us to tell her that it didn't snow, that what happened in her dream didn't happen. We tell her the truth. She says we're lying. We tell her Noelle becomes stronger. We grab a ring made of thorns from our pocket. Noelle, seeing what we're holding, becomes shocked in disbelief. We proceed closer and closer to her, with her backing up with each movement we take. She reminds us, who she still thinks is only Chris, that they told her they'd protect her. We still proceed. The sound you just heard, I believe, represents the point of no return. Throughout this chapter and chapter 2, when doing the weird route, we're given chance after chance to back out of the weird route. If we do, a sound plays to signify this. But the long jingle that plays when we put the thorn ring on Noelle sounds like the completed version of the sound that plays when we further progress the weird route. After we hear what I think is the sound effect that represents the point of no return, we see a cutscene of Chris entering Noelle's house's bathroom, and they throw us in the trash, and they proceed to continuously kick us while we're inside of it over and over and over again. Chris's dad, Asgore, comes to the bathroom and tells them that Noelle's mom wants everyone to leave the house. They allow us to take control of them once again, and they leave. Looking at our HP now, we're now at 10 health out of 20. This is pretty messed up because in Chris's efforts to sort of punish us for doing something horrible to one of their friends, they end up hurting themselves in the process as well. Once we leave the house and go to the church with Susie, as we approach the church, Susie begins to talk to us. She brings up Noelle wanting to talk to us alone, but she had noticed this bizarre look on Noelle's face. She wonders why Noelle wouldn't just talk to us with her. After Susie asks this, the area around us turns a red tint and we get 2 responses, but they're both empty. Whenever I recorded the footage for this video, I picked the left response. I literally couldn't tell you if there's a difference between picking the left or the right. Whatever we end up telling Susie though, it relieves her of the worry that Noelle told us something negative about her, but Chris gives her the vibe that they just want to drop this topic altogether. The game from here on turns normal for a while. We enter the church dark world, team up with Rouse again, meet Gerson. Eventually though, whenever Susie runs off into a room to try to find some clues to a piano puzzle, when she leaves, it leaves Chris and Rouse alone with each other. Rouse approaches Chris and asks them, instead of following Susie, to close our eyes and to think what she could be doing in there. If we say, seems unnecessary, and continue to deny Rouse's request to close our eyes, they eventually ask if we could close our eyes and think of someone else. We get the option to think about Noelle, so we choose to think about her. After we choose to think about Noelle, the game fades to black, and it stays on this black screen for a while, until barely we see a small red pixel fade on screen. It gently swayed side to side, and Noelle begins to slowly talk to us in a shaky voice. All she says is thank you, before a sudden flash of red consumes the screen, paired with a loud sound. Susie then wakes us from the shock, telling Chris they were just standing there with their eyes closed, and suddenly just started breathing hard. She helps us up on our feet before Rouse returns. This is one of the few moments in the game where like it's just a straight up jump scare, bro. That was foul, Toby Fox. I didn't like that whenever I got the footage for this video. Yeah, I don't appreciate that. A moment similar to this happens whenever we seal the fountain for the first time in this chapter and we wake up in the church. We can find these prayer candles sitting on a shelf with people's names on them, and when we interact with them, we get the option to pray for Noelle. We select it, but as soon as we do, Chris kicks the shelf all the candles are sitting on. And from what I know, there is only one last notable thing for me to talk about that happens in this weird route, and it's literally at the very end of the chapter, when Chris is in bed trying to ignore Sans and Toriel's freaky shenanigans. What normally breaks Chris's focus on what they're doing is hearing Susie suddenly talk. But in the weird route, Chris gets a call from Noelle's mom. She tells them the terrible, terrible news that Noelle is really looking forward to going with us to the festival tomorrow. The area around Chris goes black until they also get consumed by the darkness, and after this, the red pixel that we keep on seeing throughout this weird route fades in before the credits to the game abruptly pop in. Listen y'all, despite this video, I am well aware this game is not a horror game. In fact, a lot of the moments I discussed that came from this game, and even though this is a supposed horror video, I can understand that a lot of the stuff I talk about may not pair well with the definition of horror. But the stuff that goes down in the weird route for chapter 4, you know, I feel a little bit more confident in saying that yeah, this stuff is pretty horrific. The weird route in general is horrific. The absolute disgust I feel when seeing the mental trauma we do to Noelle cannot be understated. I hate rewatching the moment where we make Chris put the thorn ring on Noelle's freaking finger, and seeing her in denial about what she did in chapter 2 to Birdly is so heartbreaking, and her begging us to say it didn't snow to help alleviate her guilt for what she did to Birdly still. And her realizing that we have the ability to read what she thinks to herself. All this is just such an unfair burden to put on someone like her. And just imagine that, having someone being able to just read what you think to yourself, and what would make it worse is that the person that can read her thoughts is her manipulator. The ability to read someone's thoughts is one thing, but someone looking to take advantage of you and them being able to read your own personal vulnerable thoughts is just nothing short of a curse. Noelle isn't the only victim though. There's also Chris, who is the face of our evil doings. Every venom-filled command we gave Noelle in chapter 2, Chris was the face of the act. The reveal to Noelle in chapter 4 that we can read her thoughts, Chris was the face of the act. Us putting the thorn ring onto Noelle, staring her face to face, was Chris. Keep in mind, Chris grew up with Noelle. that makes what we make them do to her in the weird route feel so much more crude, awful, betrayful. That's not a word, but you get the idea. The weird route goes way beyond out of its way to show the mental decline of these two lovable characters, and it's honestly terrifying to watch unfold. I could just go on and on about how messed up the weird route is, but after all this time, I think we should wrap up the video. The horror of Deltarune. You know, I did not think when I first talked about the horror for this game in that video I made almost a year ago, I didn't think the new chapters would add so much more to that. And it was like a lot more, y'all. It was so much. It was so much that this video is somehow longer than my previous one that talked about Deltarune. Even though in that video, I talk about the horror of Undertale, the entirety of that game. Undertale is a full freaking game, by the way. And I talked about the first 2 chapters to Deltarune, the horror for those first 2 chapters. Granted, I talked about much more of the horror that came from chapter 2 because I personally feel like there isn't much to discuss in chapter 1. But the fact that this video is longer than my previous one goes to show how much horror content was added with these new chapters. I might have also dragged out this video a little bit, but that's just how I roll. That's just me. My name is Shook. Welcome to the channel, what the heck. Now that we reached the end of the video though, I gotta unload some stuff off my chest, okay? To start, I wanna just come out and say, I most definitely 100% messed up some stuff in this video. By that, I mean, whether it be something about Deltarune's plot, some important details, just anything of that sort, just stuff like that. I most likely messed up a little bit. I am, to be completely transparent, an idiot. I could read or listen to an in-depth description to a piece of media several times, and yet I'd still manage to forget some important details. And not even just some, oftentimes I forget a lot of stuff. If you know me in real life, which you probably don't, like who are you? you don't know me, right? But if you do, somehow, you would know I am very forgetful. So at certain points in this video, my forgetfulness may be a little bit clear to y'all. And for that, I would first like to thank you guys for enduring that. And I would also like to thank you guys for making it this far in the video. Like, we've been yapping forever, y'all. Like, this is a long freaking video, and it has taken me a very long time to finish it when it comes to editing, recording it, writing the script. This video has been a long one coming. But if you've been here to enjoy this journey with me, just thank you guys, man. Thank y'all so much. But I'd also like to apologize. Yeah, it's that time of the hour. Give me your sympathy. I'm joking. But real quick, I'd like to apologize for missing any important details or mistaking anything. I promise it wasn't intentional, and trust me when I say I understand the peeve of listening to a video covering a game you enjoy and hearing them messed up some of the cool details the game has. It's just not cash money. I know that if I messed up anything, you guys will let me know, and please go for it. I got some stuff wrong in my first video, and I was a little bothered whenever I read comments that called me out for it, but again, I understand 100% looking back. The only issue with those critical comments was not the comments themselves. Heck no, obviously not. Criticisms welcome here. The issue was I was way too hyper focused on them, and I didn't realize that video had honestly reeled in a bunch of awesome people to start a dialogue with this game I love. And all these people just talked about Undertale and Deltarune on that video, and there's so much of y'all that commented on it just talking about it. And that is like the best thing ever for me, just talking about something I love with people. I freaking love that. But I somehow managed to miss a lot of that whenever I made that video, and after it got big and I just focused on the critical, that was stupid on my end. I apologize for everything. I love y'all. Come here. Just Something else I want to talk about real quick too is in my first video covering Undertale and Deltarune, I missed 2 possible opportunities to talk about horror. One was in Deltarune, and in chapter 1, I missed out on talking about someone like Jevil. He is the secret boss for that chapter, and he's similar to Spamton to where I believe he got a hold of some like forbidden knowledge and he just went crazy. He got this forbidden knowledge by some strange individual, and there's overall a bunch of eerie implications with his entire character story. I just didn't talk about it. The reason being, I'm gonna be completely frank with y'all, I was lazy. I was lazy. I just wanted to talk about my hubby bubby sweetie pie Spamton, and so I might have just skipped over chapter 1, so that was a stoopy doopsie. Another thing I ended up missing or skipping over was someone in Undertale, this someone being Omega Flowey, and if you don't know what Omega Flowey is or looks like, he is the final boss, I think, for the neutral route in Undertale. You also end up fighting him on the path for the pacifist too, but you end up fighting him most of the time. And once you get to his boss fight, this is the thing you see. I just don't understand the logic I had to not talking about that, especially in the video where I talk about Undertale's horror. Like, that is actually stupid. I meant what I said earlier, y'all. I am just an idiot sometimes. The next thing I want to talk about is just that, you know, I love you guys and I love Deltarune. Deltarune is truly something special, y'all. Its story, its characters, its horror, all of it has a magic to it, and it's crazy. It's a crazy experience watching this game's growth. My journey with Deltarune started all the way back in the day when Undertale was a fresh game. When I got into Undertale, I got like really into it. So much though that I can't believe I'm about to confess this to y'all. I was so into Undertale, I somehow managed to get one of my friends to get a Sans girlfriend. Oh my god. Okay, listen, calm down, don't freak out. Let me explain. So, something that was really popular all the way back in like 2015 and 2016, I think, was something called Undertale Alternate Realities, or Undertale AUs. And if you were in Undertale's community back in the day and you looked into Undertale alternate realities, it was just things got wacky. Things got a little bit crazy, a little bit freaky, and maybe someone my age shouldn't have been exposed to some of the stuff that was in the community back in the day, but well, I was. I'm not gonna get into that. However, I will just elaborate a little bit on what I said whenever I got my friend to date a female Sans. Let me just tell you. I was hanging out with my friends and we went on, I think, some like social media app, and we somehow got into contact with, you know, this we're all kids, so we got into contact with this kid role playing role playing as Sans, but like she was female and like the Sans was female and my friend was like raising her up, and they were like it didn't get freaky, but it was just like these two kids are romancing right now. And then my friend managed to reveal his face and he got to see her face, and he didn't like the way she looked, so they stopped talking. That's that story. And you know, to think I would go from convincing one of my friends to talk to a female Sans in a romantic way to whatever the heck this video is, man. Deltarune and Undertale may be different games, but because of Undertale, I got to experience Deltarune, and honestly, my love for Undertale and my passion for Undertale was transported to Deltarune, and because of Deltarune, that love and passion has grown so much. Something else I want to mention real quick is whenever the new chapters came out for Deltarune, I had zero ambition to talk about them in a video, because I dived in a bit on it earlier, but whenever I first talked about Undertale and Deltarune, the sheer support and the sheer attention that video got was so overwhelming. I was just scared to do it again. But like nothing would have prepared me for the amount of horror we would have got in these new chapters. Like, it would be freaking stupid if I didn't talk about the new chapters. So I did in this video, and as I'm recording this audio, I have already edited like 80% of the video. I'm just recording the wrap up for it now. But like, looking back at what I did for this video, I'm still a little nervous to release it, I'll be honest. And despite me being a little bit cringy in this video, I went a little edgy with that one little Tenna and Spamton segment. I was feeling a little edgy, you know, get this wolf out of me. But like my previous video, which was mainly just a passion project, so is this. I'm gonna leave. I just have one more thing to ask of you guys. Well, okay, I have a couple things to ask of y'all. First, it would be very appreciated if you like and subscribe. The support really does help, and I just appreciate it if you considered it. But also, around the time this video drops, there should be a post in my community tab on my channel The post should be a question asking y'all if there's anything horror related y'all would want to see me cover in a video. And to elaborate, I have some games I think would be interesting to talk about in a video because they are similar to Deltarune in the aspect that they're non-horror games that have moments of intense horror, but it's gonna take some time to decide what game I think would be worthy to talk about in a video. I'd love to know some media that you guys would think would be fun for me to cover in a video. You guys could go to that post on my community tab, or you could just comment on this video. I don't really care. I just want to hear some of y'all's thoughts and ideas on what I could talk about. But yeah, that's about it, y'all. Goodbye, guys. And please don't forget, I love you. Bye-bye. But yeah, all the stuff that went down in the second minute, all the stuff that went down in the second,